And David, if you would call the roll, please.
Yes. Commissioner Maruzzi?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Hirschbein?
Present.
Commissioner Urban?
Here.
Commissioner Layan?
I'm here.
Vice Chair Roberts?
I am present.
And Chair Wermick?
Present.
Well, you're not present.
All members present.
The video will be off my video will be off this evening.
But you're not serving in your capacity tonight, correct? How do you want to record that, David?
Yeah, so for the benefit of the public, the chair is not feeling well tonight, so she will be off video, but for all intents and purposes, she will be participating in the meeting, able to see the video that all of us are seeing, and has confirmed that she is able to act in her capacity as a planning commissioner. So if Madam Chair, if you just confirm that for the benefit of the public, that would be great.
Yes, I confirm that for the benefit of the public.
Great, thank you.
Okay, will you report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Roberts, the agenda was posted on Thursday, March 3rd. Our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law.
Thank you. So speaking to my colleagues now, I'm looking for an acceptance of the agenda. Any changes, thoughts, comments before we move forward?
Move the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open up for public comment right now. The public is welcome to address us on anything that pertains to Planning Commission matters. We are going to ask you if you are speaking tonight on items 4A or 5A to wait for those agenda items to come up. Please understand that on the comments that you make, we are not able to respond at this meeting because whatever your item is isn't necessarily noticed, but we are here to listen and you will have 3 minutes to comment. If you would like to speak, you can raise your hand where we can see you, or you can raise your hand through Zoom, or if there's a gap, you can go ahead and start as well. Who would like to speak?
And Mr. Roberts, just for a point of clarity, items 4A, which is the self-storage facility, and item 5A, which is the vision and priority statements, those are not public hearing items. So anyone who wishes to speak on either of those two items would do so now and not at the time 4A and 5A are discussed.
Although our agenda says the opposite, but
section 2 is our public hearings.
yeah.
So if anyone would like to speak on items 4A and 5A, now would be the time to do so.
Well, we invite the public to speak on any items. Any comments from the public at this time?
Correct. Looks like Kenneth Kaluya.
Please, sir, tell us your name and start speaking whenever you would like.
All right. Hey, guys. How you doing? What's going on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. I was linking to the Zoom meeting concerning the nightclub that was going to be opening up, Fuego. Wonderful. I am opposed to it. I do live in the Orleans apartments. I've been here in the Palm Springs downtown community for over 10 years. And my back window directly faces this venue. And, being in the serving bartending industry here in downtown Palm Springs for over 15 years, I do know what it's like at a nightclub. And just with the traffic, the noise, everything that's going to happen, it would completely disrupt my lifestyle out here. It would be tragic.
Thank you for your...
give a comment about that. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to give a comment about that and express my concerns with just living right here.
Thank you for your comments. Duly noted. Who else would like to speak to us tonight? I see no hands up. Please jump in.
Dirk McCullough is the first person to speak next, followed by Joy Brown Meredith.
Oh, I see the hands up now. Okay. Dirk, please start.
Hi, thanks. I'm Dirk McCullough with Jackson Maine Architecture. This is on item 4A, the self-storage facility, and I represent the applicant. I just wanted to kind of clarify a couple of things. There was in the staff report, there is a recommendation with respect to more screening and more plantings kind of along the north and east property lines. And I just want to make the commission aware that there is also kind of an overlapping requirement with the Riverside County Airport Land Use Commission and their planting requirements. And they do not like tree or kind of dense tree canopies that create habitat for birds because of the risk of bird strikes with the airport nearby. So I just wanted to draw your guys' attention to that kind of these overlapping and somewhat conflicting requirements that we have, just for your consideration. The other one is condition PLN 5 in the staff report. This is a small item, but it's a prohibition on exterior downspouts. And this particular type of facility and how they're generally constructed, and they're not all over the place, but there's certain places where that's the convention of the systems that are used to construct these buildings. And so to do away with those would be challenging. We do have kind of solutions in place to protect them and make them look really nice and clean and protect them from impact and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to offer up those two perspectives. Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. And if you are going to stay with us, we may have some questions when that item comes up.
Absolutely. I will be here.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Joy. Nice to see you.
Hi, haven't seen you in so long. Thank you for hearing my comments today. I'm here commenting on the entertainment venue in the 400 South Palm Canyon block. Maybe it's 300, I don't know. I do have some concerns, first of all, about noise and then about parking. It seems that it would be very underparked for the number of people that would be allowed there. I'm concerned about the neighborhoods and I'm just concerned overall. We've been talking about the general plan lately and just, really what is the plan here for Palm Springs? I've always been very proud of Palm Springs to be like no place else. And I've always felt that people come from urban areas to be here because it was a different sort of environment that they were escaping to. But we're bringing on some things that are going to really change that personality. And it's not that I don't like change. That's not true. I hate change. But in this particular case, I just feel that, we really are changing the vibe of Palm Springs. And that might be the direction that the plan is going. But I hope that that's really some thought is going to go into that and what the future will bring with these sort of changes. Thank you for hearing me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joy. Matt, you're up.
I'd actually like to pass my turn to Brad Corzin, if I may, and return at another time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi,
Okay.
Brad.
Hi, I'm Brad Corzin. I'm the owner of the Avalon Palm Springs Hotel and the Ingleside Inn. And I agree with many of the comments that Joy just expressed about what I thought Palm Springs was about. And I feel like a nightclub in this location is an absolutely horrible idea. I think it is absolutely inconsistent with the area around it. I think it's going to have a hugely detrimental impact to our business. I'm very concerned about the noise, until 2:00 in the morning, the cars, there's no way they could possibly park this nightclub efficiently and without the craziness and noise that's going to happen with hundreds of drunk people going in and out of there until 2:00 in the morning on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. I think that I've been in the hotel business for 30 years, and I've had situations where there has been nightclubs around hotels, and I think this is extremely inconsistent with this neighborhood, with this specific location. I don't think there's any mitigation that can possibly be done that would be even close to keeping our business and the expectations that we have for our business viable. The business nightclub on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, which is about 70% of our business, would be very detrimentally impacted, and I vehemently oppose it.
Thank you for your comments. I think, who's up next? David, is it Ted?
Correct, Ted Richards.
Mr. Richards? Mr. Richards, would you like to address the commission? Okay, how about Lucy Berman? Would Lucy Berman like to address the commission? Okay, how about Bruce Bauer? Mr. Bauer, would you like to address? Okay.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, commissioners, planning commissioner, chair, and planning commissioners. I submitted a letter earlier today, and hopefully everyone has a copy of it and has reviewed it concerning item 2A on the agenda. That's the Fuego nightclub. We're very concerned about the impact of this nightclub on the area and the neighborhood. We are representing a number of concerned owners in the town, including the Del Marco Hotel, La Serena Villas, the 350, Avalon Hotel, the Ingleside Inn, Melvin's Restaurant and Lounge, Chi-Chi Restaurant, and Australia Spa. In addition to those clients, we represent the 31-unit apartment buildings, the Orleans Building Apartment Homes, which is directly adjacent to the planned project. Our clients strongly oppose the request of the applicant for approval of its requested CUP, and we strongly urge the City Planning Commission to deny the project. The project proposes a maximum number of guests to be at this nightclub of 327 people, although the existing parking lot has only 34 spaces. Obviously, there's going to be a deficit of parking here. And we know that the project itself is adjacent to a 31-unit apartment building. There have been pictures that have been submitted by one of our clients regarding the proximity of this apartment building to this planned project. It would be a nightmare for these residents of the Orleans to be living and residing next to this nightclub. One of the most disturbing aspects of the proposed location is it directly abuts the Orleans. You're going to have a busy nightclub with patrons spilling out of that club at all hours up until closing at 2 a.m. There's been no study of the noise impact of those patrons exiting the club. While there is a study in the staff report the applicant has submitted regarding the noise in the interior of the club, there's been no rectification or study of the noise that will be emanating from that rear parking lot. Many of the Orleans tenants are elderly and have medical conditions and are not capable of speaking up on these issues. However, their quality of life will be forever compromised should this project be approved. We urge the Planning Commission to give voice to those residents. It's also stated in the staff report that the project is not subject to California Environmental Quality Act review under Sequa. We disagree strongly with that assertion. It's concluded in the staff report, staff concluded that the nightclub is categorically exempt from that Sequa review. And they use and cite the existing facilities exemption to Sequa to bulletproof it from Sequa review. However, that existing facilities exemption does not apply here. That is for in instances where there is a like use that was in place before the existing project is considered. In this instance, the prior use in where the project is planned to be located was a bank. And the use of a bank is in no way akin to what is planned at the nightclub. A commercial bank has a limited number of patrons and employees at any given time. Parking for such establishment is far less than a nightclub. And on that basis, we request and urge that the Planning Commission deny the project.
Mr. Bauer, thank you for your comment. David, I see Mr. Richards next up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Richards.
Hi, good evening. Sorry I couldn't get the thing to work when I was starting. So I've been a resident of Palm Springs since the 70s, and I think that a lot of the people that are speaking have forgotten what's actually occurred in Palm Springs. Back times ago, we had PS I Love You that was downtown Palm Springs, right in the center of town, almost directly across from this property by Rite Aid. There used to be the Chrome Parrot. We had Cecil's. We had places for young people to go and do things. I have 3 children who've left the desert with many friends, graduate of Palm Springs High School in 1981. All their children have left Palm Springs to go to places like Long Beach, San Diego, Los Angeles, because there isn't things to do. All these people that are making comment are forgetting about, what about the young people? Where do they go and where do they have things to do? If you have a person that runs a business who is very conscientious of all these things, this young lady has done her homework. She has done the sound surveys. She's done the different things. I've known her for over 13 years. She's handled property management. She's worked in the hospitality industry. She works very professionally, and she won't tolerate nonsense. For all these people that worry about parking, what about all these places that are downtown where we used to have PS I Love You? What about Chrome Parrot? There was not parking. We don't have sufficient parking in Palm Springs for lots of businesses, but no one complains about all the other businesses. Let's stop complaining about all these things and make reconciliation to all the past things that we've had. I mean, I just don't understand the concerns. Yes, there can be sound, but we can rectify those problems with having sound ordinances. The city's done their due diligence. She's brought in the police department to verify her security. They've done all those things. The guy that was speaking about Melvin's, all you got to do is sit outside Melvin's and see all the drunks walk out. I've been there. I've seen it. So don't give me all that stuff. I mean, I'm a little concerned that we don't have places for these young people. There's people who are coming down for weddings now and coming down for bridal showers and bachelor parties, and there's not a nightclub to go to. I think the city needs to start looking at things we need to do for young people. Like I said, she's very organized, and it's really disheartening to me that we're going to disqualify something in our town when we've had this in the past and it wasn't an issue. I don't know how long some of these people have lived there, but I mean, it's time that we start looking at bringing people into our town, like all these other places in Long Beach and other places, to bring our people in. These young people spend more money in our town than everybody realizes. We have, I mean, my kids, 35, 34, and 27, they'll go and spend hundreds of dollars in hotels, restaurants, all these different things. And I think that we're missing the boat here. It's not just a nightclub. It's bringing people in to have a good time and enjoy. We have Coachella Fest. People go to Coachella Fest. We have these venues that happen at Zoso. We have things at Saguaro, and it doesn't get out of hand.
You've passed 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Richards, thank you for your comments.
May I speak? I can't raise my hand. I'm on the phone.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I may, I'm a little concerned that we're getting a little bit off script on the agenda here. Right now, we are in public comment. This is the time for items 4A and 5A, which is the self-storage facility and the general plan limited update vision statement. We are going to be having those public hearings later in the agenda when we can open the public hearing. I know we're getting a lot of comment already on Fuego Nightclub. We can have more of that when we open the public hearing later in the agenda. So I would ask that we confine the public comment right now to just the self-storage facility and the general plan update. And then we're going to get to the rest of the comment for the other 3 hearings. Thank you.
Who else would like to address the Planning Commission?
Just very quickly, this is Robert Patterson, and I'm appearing on behalf of the Parker with regards to item number 2, the extension of the entitlements. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm available to answer any questions. Hopefully it won't be a controversial matter. And so I am here in case you have any questions about the project.
Thank you, sir. We may have some questions about that. Who else would like to address the Planning Commission? Seeing and hearing no further interest, we are going to move on to our agenda. We do not have a consent calendar tonight, so we're going to move into item number 2, our public hearings. Our first item is 2A. Mr. Newell, can you describe that item and please give us a staff report?
Yes, Vice Chair Roberts, we have Glenn Malacker who will be presenting this item for staff.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Are you able to see the presentation?
We can see it, Glenn.
Okay, great. So
got 2 slides, Glenn.
Okay. Let me swap screens.
And, Vice Chair Roberts, if we could just read that into the record.
Yeah, certainly. This is item 2A, Lwsc, LLC, care of Pspc Enterprises, doing business as Fuego Nightclub, requesting a conditional use permit for a nightclub cocktail lounge use within an existing 9,504 square foot building with an accompanying off-street parking located at 383 South Palm Canyon Drive in our Central Business District, case 5.1544 CUP.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. So are you able to see the screens now?
Yes.
Yes, all right. So looking at the proposed project, the nightclub at 383 South Palm Canyon Drive, just to give the Planning Commission and the public some context as to where the project will be located. This is the former bank building, which has the red star. Palm Canyon is here to the right. The Rite Aid drugstore is farther to the right. And then we have Eisenhower Health below. The Orleans apartments wrap around the back end or the west end of the parking lot for the development itself. And then we have Bellardo Road, and then the Avalon Hotel is towards the mountain to the left. So looking at the proposed use, the site consists of 3 floors. The first floor will contain an entry area where the patrons will come into the site and be ID checked, and will then move to the second floor, which is the main room. And that is what is on the screen now, which shows the area that will be used as a dance floor, a VIP room, and there's other various bars, storage, restrooms, elevators, and a staircase that will go to the 3rd floor. So the use is a permitted use within the Central Business District with the approval of a conditional use permit, which is here before you today. And a conditional use permit requires a Planning Commission hearing. You receive a staff report, and then you receive comment from the general public, and then you move forward from there to make your decision. So looking at the building exterior, it is a great mid-century modern building that was built in 1956. Thanks to our Commissioner Maruzzi, this building is on the California registry. It's not on the city registry, but it is an historic a resource to the city and to California. So you'll notice that the entry area for the property is through these glass doors here. Parking is underneath the unit, the building. It wraps around and then comes out onto Palm Canyon. To the right is the New Orleans building, which has 2 commercial storefronts and then apartments on the 2nd floor. So as the owner of La Serena Villas mentioned and the owner of this property, this does have a common wall here on the 1st floor, the ground floor. So the proposed nightclub will occupy the building and have a total number of occupants of 327 people. This is based upon an exit analysis that was done for the fire department to determine how many folks could fit into the space itself. They will need to apply for a Type 48 ABC license, which is for a nightclub, which does not require food service. They're available for special events, theme nights. Hours proposed are from 4 p.m. till 2 a.m., Thursday to Sunday. As I mentioned, the first floor contains the entry ID check. Second floor is the dance floor, bar, restrooms, back of house operations. And the third floor will have a DJ booth, 4 VIP rooms, staff break room, and elevators and stairs. There's much discussion about parking. The property is located in the downtown parking combining zone, which looks at the overall area and allows a greater calculation for off-street parking, meaning that they only need to provide 250 square feet for the assembly area. And we calculate the assembly area as to spaces where public can be served. So the dance floor, the bar areas, we exclude things like staircases, stairwells, storage areas, back of house operations. And this would require a total of 28 spaces. There are 34 spaces located around the building itself. The city asked the applicant to provide a noise study. They hired Eiler Associates to do that study, and that study was included in the staff report. From the study, they made recommendations that they add a 1/4-inch glazing and a 1-inch airspace on the west windows, and I'll show the commission what those windows look like in just a minute. And then to seal all exterior windows, doors, and penetrations. And this is to contain the noise within the space so that it does not emanate out of the building. The city hired another noise consultant to do a peer review on that original noise study, and that is also included in the staff report. The Urban Crossroads consultant determined that they needed to install a permanent noise meter along the west wall to monitor the types of noise that would occur in the parking lot, install a noise attenuation wall along the entire west wall, not just 1/4-inch thick glazing. This would help to mitigate any noise that would emanate from the music from inside the building. And then to seal all doors, windows, and penetrations. One of the actions that's required is that they enter into a security plan. The planning staff and our Sergeant Guarino walked the site. The sergeant worked with the chief of police and with consultation with the applicant to devise the security plan, which is included in your staff report. And some of the items that are in the security plan include staff training, security guards. They have to have video surveillance throughout the parking lot, inside the building itself, patrols, and then maintain adequate lighting. So looking at the site itself, this is the entryway that you would enter into the structure, and then here is the driveway that goes into the parking lot. Another view. Security lighting is currently on the building. You'll see that there are wall packs that are light the parking lot. This is the south-facing wall that's adjacent to Eisenhower Health. This is the rear of the building, and this is where there are currently the 2 rows of windows on 2 floors that are single pane. You know, it's a 1956 building, so these windows obviously would not contain much sound, and they are old, and with bass they may rattle along with the louvers over the west-facing windows. The applicant will talk about the operations and how this would work. Is my understanding that there'll be no access to the balcony up here for patrons. On the left of this picture shows the Orleans building, where the residents currently live. And this is the parking lot that wraps around the building itself. So this is a view from the balcony towards the Orleans, and you can see the green doors is the entries to the apartments adjacent to this building. And this is a view from inside looking at the green doors, which is the apartment next door. And you can tell these types of windows are metal, single pane. The recommendation from the Urban Crossroads noise consultant was that a complete wall be built here so that noise would not emanate outside and not just put 3/4 or 1/4 inch glazing on top of these windows. And this is a view of the interior that would be used for the dance floor. This is looking down from where the DJ booth will be on the 3rd floor. There's no proposal to do any mitigation of noise on the front glass windows that face Palm Canyon. This is a view of the 3rd floor where there are VIP rooms. And once again, there are those glass windows that face west would have to be enclosed to mitigate noise from the 3rd floor. So in your packet, there is a resolution that includes a list of conditions of approval that include conditions on outdoor lighting, that an ABC 48 license be obtained, the noise mitigation that we described as far as providing the noise attenuation wall and the meters, measurable sound levels, sound limiters on the types of equipment that would be used inside to have the DJ play. A lot of these conditions were fashioned after an approval that was given for a restaurant nightclub that is just half a block down called Reforma. We use those types of conditions for formulating these for Fuego. Sound mitigation measures, control of low frequency sounds, and then we've added a conformity review by the Planning Commission within 6 months after the nightclub is open. So, Vice Chair, that concludes my report. I would like to say that we have the sergeant from the police department on the call. He agreed to come on and answer questions or discuss the security plan, but he is in between meetings. So if we could have him talk, that would be great. If that's all right with you, Vice Chair.
Hello.
Thank you, Mr. Mlacher. Yes, if Sergeant would give us your thoughts on not only the mitigation plan for noise, but just your general take for a nightclub in this location with respect to how the parking lot can and should be handled if this is approved, and your take on whether we really can mitigate the kind of issues that come up with people coming and going from a nightclub after 2 a.m. in the morning.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I met with the owners of the club and did a walkthrough. Obviously, a lot of the concerns that the general public has brought up, I had some myself, which was obviously regarding video surveillance, security staff, all that is expected, and they're cooperative and they're going to obey by those rules. Some of the other issues which we can't change, which would be the parking. We obviously have issues already with fights afterwards and crowding outside historically of the Village Pub and Moxie's because they're right next to each other. So when they exit those places, they're all go to the sidewalk and they have to walk out onto Palm Canyon. And if you recall, we also had issues with Uber and Lyft in those areas because it's high speeds through there and you have intoxication of people driving DUI at nighttime, almost striking pedestrians. So when you leave this club, you only have about 30 parking spaces, if I can recall. We would have to figure out where they're going to park. We can't have them crossing Palm Canyon to the Rite Aid parking lot. And we did discuss with the owner. She advised that she was going to talk with surrounding businesses to see if they could park vehicles there or have some type of shuttle system set up which obviously that's not part of my duties, but I did raise the red flags of the parking concerns. And then you also have, unfortunately, you have crime that occurs with nightclubs. You have drunken disorderly conduct, vandalisms, and we also have a homeless issue in that area as well, which those businesses around there have been complaining about nonstop for daytime problems. And this would also add another issue of nighttime issues regarding vandalisms and drunk driving and fights and noise complaints. The apartments right next door are concerned me because they're so close regarding the noise. Historically, we've had a problem with certain businesses in the downtown area, and complaints came all the way back down. The music comes out, goes west, bounces off the mountains, and then comes back east again. So if you're on Belardo, Cahuilla, any of those west streets of Palm Canyon, you're going to hear some music. I do not know, obviously, about the sound deadening material they're going to use to reduce the noise, but you do have those thin windows that obviously are a concern to myself, and that is going to be taxing upon the police department and code enforcement regarding the noise.
Oh, thank you, Sergeant. If you could stand by in case the Planning Commission has some questions for you. I know you're between meetings, and if we lose you, we thank you so much for your time. Planning Commission, I'm going to open this up for questions of staff, and questions maybe start specifically, if you have them, for the Sergeant, since we have him for a limited amount of time. I'm just going to open up. Yes, Mr. Maruzzi.
Yes, hi, Sergeant Guarino. Were some of these issues and concerns addressed or looked into for the planned nightclub down the street next to Bevmo?
We have not got that far yet. I have not got a security plan for those businesses yet.
Mr. Newell, didn't we approve a CUP for that nightclub?
It may have been a CUP, but not a security plan.
Right. I'm just curious. I don't remember this level of concern as relates to after hours noise and some of those things coming up for that project so much. I'm wondering why.
We did approve that project, and there was a very specific plan, which I'm going to ask staff to address in a moment.
But it didn't include apparently a security plan? I'm confused.
It did. It included security and sound mitigations, which staff is prepared to tell us about.
Okay, Mr. Sergeant Marino said it did not include a security plan, so that is my confusion. Okay, thanks.
You bet. Who else? Yes, Commissioner Irvin.
I'm just curious with the last proposal that we approved. Do they have neighbors that are abutting walls to their building, as well as this location that we have here in front of us?
Mr. Malacker, can you respond to that? I think we do have hotels abutting, not quite as much residential.
Commissioner Irvin, so you're asking the previous Reforma project or this project?
No, the previous project that we just approved maybe a couple of months ago.
I think he's referring to the former Robinson site.
Right. Yeah. So that is a freestanding building that does not have residential buildings that abut right against it. There is a parking lot that separates them from Belardo to the west, but there are multiple hotels that line that street. So even though that they're not directly adjacent to it, there are residential units nearby.
And is it the chief, or who is that that's on the line with us?
Sergeant Guarino.
Sergeant, can you maybe take a second to maybe speak about the level of crime that we have in that area? Do you have any statistical numbers for any of the crimes that we have in that area?
No, I do not have any statistical data with me right now. Generally in that area at nighttime, there's nothing that is open regarding nightclubs. We do have Rite Aid across the street and a couple restaurants, but those close somewhat early. I would say predominantly the major issues would be traffic-related offenses on Palm Canyon, property crimes, and as well as homeless issues with homeless in that area.
Thank you.
Other questions for Sergeant Garino or staff?
Yes, I had a question into how this compares to Zelda's. I had the privilege of permitting Zelda's, and they had a security plan that I believe they didn't follow, but was it fairly close to what we're seeing here?
Yes, Zelda's security plan was also updated. Yes, they did not follow the video surveillance requirements and some lighting, some video, basically the video surveillance issues. This has been revamped over the last couple years, and I believe Zelda's was probably the first one which actually came out with more suggestions on the security plan regarding training, ABC leads training, sexual harassment, identification of uniforms, picking up trash in the parking lot, making sure that the video surveillance was provided to law enforcement in a timely manner. These were all things that were changed compared to their old security plan. So this one is the most updated security plan.
And what kind of impact would it have on you to enforce this security plan? What kind of resources would it take up?
Well, that's hard to say because it really depends on the things we don't have control over, whether it be alcohol-related offenses, people's bad decision-making. You can't run a bar without having problems when alcohol is involved. And I think that goes for any bar anywhere in the world. If you're going to serve alcohol, sometimes people get out of hand. And that's when it comes on to the training for staff to make sure that there's no over serving, that we're obeying the ABC laws, calling cabs, breaking up fights, and identifying things before fights happen. And these are all things that I will reiterate and talk with their staff about as well. So they're going to have the same training and same requirements as other bars that are in function and are working within the city.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hirschbein, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions for the sergeant. So if anybody else wanted to, I would defer to them at this time.
Commissioner Land, were your questions for the sergeant or in general?
There's a couple of them where I'm not sure if the sergeant would be the best person to answer them or not. As example, I'm thinking of hours of operation for, say, the village pub. I know that there have been problems, crime problems at the village pub. There have been incidents there. Are they open until 2 a.m.? And is that when the problems occur?
Yes, the bars close. Moxie's and Village Pub stop serving at the same time, and one of the main issues there is after the bars close, you have people, regardless if they're from the bar or if they're actually just coming after the fact, or if they're walking around downtown, they go to the public parking inside of the parking structure. So now you have multiple people in one spot getting into their vehicles. Unfortunately, sometimes it's gang related. Other times it could just be alcohol related fights for whatever reason that occur inside of the bars. But it's not just pinpointed to those two bars. It could have been at any of the other bars serving alcohol, or a car club that's in the parking structure that comes and they're there and they didn't even utilize any of our bars downtown.
In your opinion, would it be a safer scenario if the hours were limited and didn't go till 2 a.m. if they were restricted till, say, midnight?
I couldn't answer that, and I don't know who has the authority, if the city has the authority on that, if you guys can make that, or obviously ABC has a specific time where they have to legally stop serving alcohol. I'm not sure if you all have the authority, which you may have, to limit the alcohol times serving.
We do.
Okay, so if that's a choice you all make, I can't guarantee, because again, we're talking about people we don't have control over. And it will all come down to the staff at this establishment with the proper training and proper management and identifying problems before they start, so there's not a big problem.
Okay, thank you. And acting chair, I do have questions for staff when we get to that when we're done with the sergeant.
Absolutely. Commissioner Hirschman.
Okay, so as long as no one else has questions for the sergeant, I have a few questions for staff. One of the conditions that you're suggesting we put on the project is that a noise monitoring device be installed. But what would that do? I mean, assuming that it's above a certain dB level, do the lights go off? Do the police get called? What action is triggered by that?
So in speaking with our Urban Crossroads consultant, I asked them that specific question, and they also had another meeting that could not be on our Zoom call unless Bill is here. I can't really see. So in the noise metering would be linked to someone inside the business itself. So they would be able to know if the noise level exceeds what limit been set. So they could react to it and either turn it down or fix the bass. But it also would be recorded. So if code enforcement or the police department wanted to the noise metering levels, they could have that and be available.
And how would somebody in management of the club be notified if is it like something in their ear, or is there a light flashing, or what's going on?
My understanding is that there's, and the applicant may discuss this, I know that she's looked into it. It could ring to your phone. There's an app that it goes to. So there are secure ways that it only, how you describe it as far as the noise just ending, that wouldn't be how it would work. But there are ways that it notifies the manager inside the business itself.
Okay, thanks for that. I have a couple of other questions. One of the public people that made a public comment said that categorical exemptions, I believe was the phrase, are appropriate, but was questioned because it's not a like use, and he cited the bank. And I'd like to hear from our attorney whether he agrees with that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The exemption that staff is citing here is what we call a Class 1 exemption under Sequa. And it consists of operation, repair, maintenance, leasing, licensing, alteration of existing structures, facilities involving negligible or no expansion of an existing or former use. Now, staff can clarify further, but my understanding is that the former use was not a bank, but that the former use was an event space. Again, I think staff can clarify that, but I believe that was the position staff was taking. And that is the Class 1 exemption there. If the Planning Commission believes that that this involves a negligible or no expansion of the former use, then you can make that Class 1 exemption finding and move forward. If you believe that it does not apply and further Sequa analysis is merited, you can also take that position as well and direct staff to do further analysis.
And if Sequa, if the commission believes that it's not a like use and a Sequa study is required, would that address the noise issues in a more detailed analysis?
It could. I'm not a sound engineer, so I can't say whether more analysis would yield any further information because there has been extensive sound analysis done. But yes, if you direct us to do further Sequa analysis, we can take another look at noise and see whether any additional information is necessary.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of more questions for staff. what is flanking?
So flanking is if you were to, in the case, this is what our noise consultant from Urban Crossroads described. If you took the glass windows that are on the west facing wall and just block them out, let's say, or put glass over top of them, there's still the ability for noise to sort of creep around that noise barrier, where if you build a complete wall from floor to ceiling, blocking off the windows, that would prevent that from happening.
Okay, and I think I have one or two more questions. Under issues on the first page of your report, you say the noise could be contained if these. Oh,
go ahead, Michael.
Sorry. Under number 2 on the issues, you're saying the noise could be contained if the mitigation is done. What do you mean by contained? Does contained mean you wouldn't hear it outside the property line?
So in the report that was provided by the applicant, there are several drawings that show noise decibel levels that would occur with the noise mitigation. And that's what we're saying, that with noise mitigation, the noise would be contained within the building, but within levels that would not exceed the noise ordinance as you measure at the property lines itself.
Okay, all right, I got that. And then I did have one other question. Well, actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. So an assembly area allows, I think it was one person per 25 feet. Is that right for this use?
To calculate parking?
No, occupancy.
Well, it's based, when they do the exit analysis, it's how fast you can have people exit the building based upon if there's a fire emergency, based upon stairwells, elevators. And I don't know off the top of my head what each person needs as far as square footage wise.
All I'm getting at, and I guess this is more of a comment, but to say that your occupancy level is 327 people, that's how many people can legally occupy the building. And then you get it to only 34 parking spaces, or actually 28 required spaces. There seems to be a discrepancy between occupancy and parking to service that occupancy. Is there any kind of city, I guess is my question then, city policy, and does that discrepancy occur regularly, or is it some unique feature of this building?
So in the downtown, the central business district, we have in the zoning code what's called the downtown parking combining zone, and that allows more generous calculations in parking, off-street parking. So it's not uncommon around the downtown that if you look at a shopping center like the Spring Shopping Center, there's a calculation that has to be met based upon the square footage of all those buildings. In the downtown, it is based upon mixed use and shared parking opportunities. So with the parking garage around the corner, on-street parking, people doing Uber and Lyft, or people staying in hotels that have already been parked, there's multiple ways for people to get to a location. So the parking ratio is calculated a little bit different than if it was a standalone business in a general commercial zone.
Okay. And just one more question. The 50 dB level that you're citing as being not to exceed in that monitoring device, is that the code requirement?
Yes, that is the code requirement at that at the edge of the property. If you were to stand at the property, you wouldn't.
Right.
It would be that level.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Oyen?
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions for staff. This proposed nightclub is in the central business district. How long has this building been in the central business district? Forever? Is this, did something change in recent years? Was the area rezoned?
Well, it was built in 1956 and it operated as a bank. When it became the event venue, that was 2015 and survived for or operated for a few years and has been vacant probably since before the pandemic. So 2 years it's been vacant.
But for the Orleans and for the other hotels that are in the area, I'm wondering how long they have been adjacent to buildings in the central business district where a nightclub could have been open.
Right. The Orleans has been there since the 50s also. So they sort of developed the same. You'll notice in that block, it's a very distinct, it's sort of the financial district, let's say, of the downtown area with all those bank buildings that have since been adaptive reused for like Eisenhower, and then there's galleries and there's other uses that have moved into those former bank buildings.
Okay. And when the bank became the bank event center, did they have amplified music?
There was none that was affixed. It was it would be brought in on speakers, and it wasn't a fixed system.
Okay, but they were allowed to have events. I guess my question is, did they actually hold events that had amplified music? And did we hear complaints and distress from the neighborhood based on those events?
Right. There have been multiple events that were there. There was some Modernism Week events that were held there over the years, and there were at least 300 people in the building. I cannot tell you if there have been noise complaints because of those.
Okay. Also, not just for the noise monitoring, I had the question about noise monitoring. What happens if they know the noise levels, decibel levels are exceeded? But I have the same question for the 6-month review, Planning Commission review. If there is a review, or if there are operations that are outside of what is allowed under the CUP, can the CUP be revoked?
Well, revocation of a CUP, well, let's just say that the Planning Commission has used that condition in previous approvals of these types of uses, so it's not unusual. Have we had to do that? Have a hearing, a revocation hearing? There's a whole process of how that would occur, and maybe the city attorney could describe it better than me, but it's a mechanism that we can use to monitor and see how things are going with a 6-month update.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the commission. If the permittee violates any of the conditions of approval or provisions of the code, which are incorporated into the conditions of approval, that can be a basis for revocation. Procedurally, it's not all that different than what we would do with granting a CUP. We would notice a public hearing, and then the permittee would have the opportunity to be heard by the Planning Commission and explain why the CUP should not be revoked. And then we would have the hearing, and the Planning Commission would make the determination. I trust that answers the question.
I'll add, Commissioner Lane, that we did have that occur with Zelda's.
That was my vague recollection. Okay. Yeah. So if we establish conditions for the operation of the business and the business does not follow the conditions, there is an avenue for relocation. It's not a permanent. Okay. Right. And then I guess my other question would be, have nightclubs always been a permitted use under CUP within a central business district? Or is this new?
I would say that's not new. It's been CUP has been required for many years. I've been here since 2014, or 14 years, so it's always been the case. I'd have to go back and look at older zoning codes, but I would think that it was a conditional use that if you're not serving food or a bona fide restaurant, that you would need a conditional use permit.
Okay. Alrighty, that's answers my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for staff? Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, it's a couple for staff. Regarding the noise review or the 6-month review that was just talked about, has there been any examples where we've shortened that to say a 3-month review as opposed to allowing some use to go on for 6 months before it gets scrutinized?
We can set any review period that we like. In the past, we've generally set it beyond 3 months just to give a business time to get up and operational. Obviously, if a business starts badly and we get a lot of complaints from the police, we can call it back up.
In other words, we don't have to wait for the 6 months to expire. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Another question, I guess, for staff. Has staff, regarding the parking and the ins and outs off of Palm Canyon, the way the parking is currently angled, it seems to make sense that there would be one way in and one way out to try to hopefully minimize any potential conflicts within the parking area itself. Had that one way in and one way out been looked at all as staff was reviewing this?
Right. The spaces are striped at an angle. So that is the intent, that you would enter underneath through the building and then wrap around and come back out onto Palm Canyon.
Right. But the arrows on the plans show ins and outs for both of those curb cuts. So, I mean, if this were to move forward, I would certainly think we would want to condition that there be signed one way in and one way out so that it tried to work a little better than what it might if it follows the plan. My other question is, and I don't know if this is for staff or for the applicant at another time, have they identified where a smoking area will be on the plans? I didn't see anything on the plans, but I might have missed some small print. Typically with a nightclub or any venue like this, there's going to be a number of people that want to smoke, and so they come outside. So where is that area going to be?
Right. Staff did ask that question of the applicant, and I'll let them explain it as to how that would operate.
All right. I think that's all of my questions for staff.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Maruzzi.
Yes, thank you. I want to better understand the parking requirements in terms of how this is determined. It's based on square footage, not use. Is that correct?
It's based upon area where the public is served, so assembly area.
So if the use was for the meetings of the chess club, and there were 327 members of the chess club, it's the same amount of parking as 327 people going to a nightclub?
Depending on the size of the space. So if the chess club was meeting in a 500 square foot space.
No, in that space, the exact one we're talking about.
Then they would need to, they would still be required to provide the 28 parking spaces.
But why is it not based on use?
The code.
Yeah, Mr. Lackler, maybe I can clarify these. The provisions of the code that are being cited here classifies them as places of public assembly. So I suppose your hypothetical chess club or the nightclub would be under the same terminology.
That seems rather ridiculous, but okay, that's the zoning code. The parking lots that surround the back of the property, like the Eisenhower parking lot and others, are those private lots that could be blocked off so they wouldn't be taken by patrons of the nightclub?
Those are private lots. And I forgot to mention in my presentation that you did receive multiple letters from concerned property owners, and one of them is the operator of that building, Eisenhower. And they did mention that it's a private lot and they use it some evenings. So it would not be available for this applicant to use.
So is that the calculation that you use for the central business district of these other areas that people can park? If there are private lots, would those then be excluded and the numbers would change?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't use a private lot to calculate somebody else's parking.
Okay, so the ones that are surrounding it on the rear are not included in the potential parking.
No.
Okay, and then this issue of the wall being constructed, I don't quite understand. Is it a concrete block wall in the interior to block out the windows?
We have not received construction documents at this time, so they would need to, within the building, they're proposing adding several new restrooms, which would involve additions of plumbing, toilet fixtures and so on. So we have not gotten those construction documents as of yet. So I can't give you an affirmative answer as to what the material would be used to attenuate the noise, but it is a condition of approval that they get the building permits to do that.
Since this is a historic resource under Sequa, are there any elements of the plan that would affect its historic significance? Is it all interior and no exterior?
Without having construction documents, we can't say. As you know, there's a concrete podium which is the second or the first floor. How plumbing would be used or routed would be obviously reviewed by our historic preservation board at the time, because it is a class 3 structure.
So shouldn't, under Sequa in the initial study, shouldn't that be considered as something that is a potential significance and therefore would be a mitigated net deck instead?
Mr. Roberts, if I could just add to what Mr. Malacker said, because this is interior work and it's not a publicly owned building, interior work can occur under the city's historic preservation ordinance. So that doesn't require HSPB review. Any exterior changes, however, may require review either by the historic preservation officer or the historic site preservation board. To the extent that what information we do have on the exterior changes, they appear to be minor and negligible for the property. So the highest level of review probably at this stage, from what we understand, would require HPO, historic preservation officer review.
So there would be no initial study necessary?
Maybe I can chime in here. As Mr. Newell indicated, under our historic preservation ordinance, only exterior modifications would be under consideration for something like an HPO, certificate of appropriateness or something like that. If the commission believes that Sequa analysis should be done with respect to historicity of the building, that's not necessarily limited to just the exterior. I mean, you could look at the interior of that too for Sequa purposes. And again, I think there's already been some, concerns raised about Sequa by others, but that is something that could be looked at from a Sequa perspective, not from an historic preservation ordinance standpoint.
All right, thank you.
Chair Wormack, you had your hand up. And you're muted.
Okay, hi. A couple of questions for Glenn. When we did Infusion Beach, and I believe when we did the place in what used to be the Robinson's building, we had a limitation on noise that the applicant couldn't adjust. That was one of the ways we dealt with it. So if the decibel rating was at a certain level, it would automatically stay there and not go up. It looks like you didn't include that automatic in this, but do you have any reason why you didn't?
Right. So for Infusion, remember that was an outdoor venue. So the commission was concerned about outdoor sounds because you couldn't contain it. I mean, it was outside. Where we did include sound limiter as one of the planning commission conditions. It doesn't say automatic, although looking at the Reforma one, it does say maintain hardware and software volume limiters. But that is something that we can add.
And then my second question on this is, because one of the concerns is the livability of the area, and as people spill out at night, have we considered insulating the apartment building and basically requiring that the noise be limited through a thorough sound protection of that building?
Well, so you're saying that the applicant would noise proof the adjacent properties?
Similar to what airports do. Yes.
Not sure how the city could require attenuation on it.
We can certainly require on-site improvements to mitigate impacts that the Planning Commission finds are necessary in order to make the CUP findings of approval. We would have to understand a little bit better, doing off-site improvements. I think you would have nexus to do that if you can demonstrate that the impact needing to be addressed, is necessary to make those findings.
We have testimony from neighbors that this was difficult for them when it was the other use, haven't we? So
when it was the party venue, you mean?
The party venue, yes.
I don't have any recorded complaints.
I think the first testifier raised that issue. I could be wrong. But this is very hard, and the hotels complained with the last two nightclubs we put in, and they were very similar complaints, and they come down the street as they move. So I'm just wondering if I think we have to pursue every avenue and sound to see if we can get there.
Okay, do we have other questions of staff at this point? Yes, Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, sorry, some of the other things jogged one more question for staff. Can you confirm that the previous entertainment venue here did have a closing time of 10 p.m., which I saw in some of the correspondence that we received? In other words, it didn't operate till even 11 or midnight, let alone 2 a.m. Do you know what the hours of the entertainment venue were?
I don't know what the hours were. I'm sure that when they had a catering liquor license or whatever they used, there was some limit as to what time they had to end.
Did they have to get a CUP for that use?
They did not.
Yes, Commissioner Land.
A couple of these questions were prompted from previous conversation here. There are a couple of other uses in the neighborhood that flood the neighborhood with vehicles and people parking, and I presume late night door slamming and the same type of thing. And I'm wondering how those might be dealt with and if there are any applications for here. One would be the Women's Club. They have a small theater in there. They have productions in there and things get out at say 10 o'clock. Are those, do the hotels object to those as well? And if so, are there any measures in place that we could impose here?
My understanding, the Women's Club does not have a conditional use permit. It's a use that's been there for many, many years. I have not heard of any objections or issues with operations that occur at the club.
Okay. because some of those are quite adjacent to the hotels as well. Also, there are a couple of hotels that have a lot of events in that area that have a lot of events with amplified music that serenades the neighbors until late at night. And I never say the name right, Carokia would be an example of one. How do they hold those? Are there any requirements for the hotels as far as limitation of the hours, the sound traveling? The Avalon even has some, particularly you get weekends where it's going to be White Party or Coachella or something, and most of the hotels in the area seem to have a lot of noise going on. How are those regulated?
The zoning code views hotels as having accessory or ancillary uses or activities, and that is what we would consider those types of activities. So a hotel can have a wedding, can have a ballroom that has conference meetings and so forth. So there's no requirement for a hotel to come in and get a special event permit or a CUP. It's just part of the operations of doing business as a hotel.
Okay, and do you get complaints from the neighbors when those go late or are particularly loud?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure that we have gotten complaints.
I'd like to suggest a number of you have asked about arrest numbers or complaint numbers, I should say. And if the sergeant's still with us and by chance has those numbers, that might be helpful, not only for the existing use, but perhaps for hotel events, excuse me, close by. Commissioner Leanne, did you have further questions? Other questions of staff? Okay, I have a question. Mr. Mwacker, we put in a huge number of conditions on the approval of Fusion. And as you pointed out, Fusion had outdoor music. Are there any conditions that we had asked of Fusion that you have not recommended for this potential nightclub in your suggestion of approval?
So the conditions that we used to formulate these was Reforma, because it was an indoor venue. As the applicant gives her presentation, I can look up and see what the ones were for infusion, and I can report back to you, but I don't know off the top of my head because we didn't, I used the Reforma ones to formulate these.
Thank you, sir. Any last questions for staff before we go forward with the applicant? Is the applicant here to address us tonight? If the applicant is here to address us, will you please unmute yourself and let me know?
My name is Chris Preciado. I'm here.
Hold on.
You're there, Justine?
I'm here. Sorry, it won't let me start the video.
Okay, that's fine. What we'll do is we will have you identify yourself for the record. Before you will have 10 minutes to address the commission. I'd like to suggest to you that we are pretty familiar now through our staff with what you're intending to do. You've heard a lot of concern about noise, about sound, about crime, about your parking lot and parking, your connection to a residential building directly, as well as other residential and hotel uses behind you. I'd highly suggest that you spend this time trying to convince us on how a use like this can work with proximity to those other uses.
Yes, certainly. Thank you for the time this evening, and thank you for reviewing all the information you've received.
Would you please identify yourself to begin with?
Yes, my name is Justine Boyer, also known as J. Marie. And if you would be so kind, I'd like to share my screen and show a slight presentation and go over so most of the concerns that the public and as well as commissioners have addressed, if that's okay.
I will allow it, but remember you are within 10 minutes. David, will you share the screen with her?
Yeah, she has ability to share screen.
You're all set.
Thank you so much. Well, here we go. As previously mentioned, this is Fuego Nightclub. My name is Jay Marie, also known as Justine Boyer. I'm the co-owner of Fuego Nightclub. I'm a successful entrepreneur born and raised in the Coachella Valley. I've always had a strong passion for music and entertainment. I have worked in the entertainment industry for well-known resorts here in the Coachella Valley. I work in finance, have managed an HOA with nearly 400 units, so I'm pretty familiar with rules and regulations and the city codes and such and so forth. Having owned vacation rental management business, purchased real estate, myself and my team are a strong force that want to improve the Coachella Valley and bring the needed and wanted nightlife to locals and tourists. Our inspiration. Our love for music is the main inspiration behind Fuego. I learned to whistle before I could talk, and being born into a family of entertainers, musicians, and entrepreneurs, you could say the beat runs deep in my veins. Entrepreneurship was taught to me at a very young age. I watched as generations before me became very successful. They were an inspiration, obviously, to myself and the community. They were all a huge part of my life. My love for Palm Springs is deep. Being born in Palm Springs and raised in the Coachella Valley, I see a lot of potential for entertainment in the nightlife here. Now, the vision. Our vision is to provide a memorable and safe atmosphere for both locals and tourists to have a sophisticated vibe that 21 and older adults can enjoy. Fuego is a hospitality industry business consisting of a bar and nightclub, but we will not be serving food. Fuego will be open Thursday through Sunday nights and would be available for private and special events, but not every week. Fuego will cater to its clientele by providing an upscale and elegant ambiance with superb experience in lighting and sound. Our menu will have a variety of specialty cocktails and mocktails for those who don't consume alcohol or the designated driver for the evening. Alternated theme nights. Our guests will be asked to come dressed to impress for an amazing night. Dress code will be strictly enforced. Fuego will work towards a shifting cultural landscape that increasingly de-emphasizes alcohol consumption as a central component of going out. By reorientating towards an experience and entertainment-driven approach, staff will be educated on the full menu of unique offerings, as well as the best DJs and talents and occasional live entertainment. Our outstanding design, lighting, and sound system and plan and care for details will ensure that this nightclub can perform at the highest standards across the board. Location. Fuego will be located in the historical downtown Palm Springs area, which we all know is a major tourist and local destination. I won't speak too much on it because we all are very familiar where it is and what it used to hold in that building. We do want to preserve this classy historical building as much as possible. The ambiance of this space will remain true to its history and attract customers who enjoy the Palm Springs culture. We want this beautiful building to be home of Fuego Nightclub. We will feature a large dance floor with 6 VIP areas, 2 of them on the main floor and 4 up top on the mezzanine floor. This will be a beautiful nightclub in a beautiful historical building in popular Palm Springs. Being a tri-story building, the first floor is the entrance where our guests will check in and go through a security ID check. A cozy gift shop will also be offered. The second floor is where the dance floor, bar, restrooms, and VIP areas are, and a drink ledge that will run the entire length, as well as a few lounge areas. The third floor is the mezzanine floor. It will have additional restrooms, management office, break room, and 4 more VIP areas, as well as the DJ area. This building, as mentioned, does have an elevator that goes from the first to the 3rd floor, the mezzanine floor. But in our efforts for easy access to all the floors, we'll be installing an additional interior staircase on the north wall on the 2nd floor that will go straight to the mezzanine floor. Fuego will have approximately 25 employees, including management, security, bartenders, barbacks, servers, bouncers, and event coordinators and promoters. Now, this is one of the most important components: safety. Safety, comfort, and great memories. Fuego's tight security will make anyone feel comfortable to have a night out. Fuego will take pride in metal detection, pat downs, ID checks at the door, as well as any COVID vaccination card checks per city regulations. Fuego will have rotating security throughout the night. The parking lot, dance floor, VIP rooms, everyone, including employees, will feel safe while having a good time. Comfort is important to Fuego. We want every guest who enters to have a good time. Our goal, obviously, is to leave everlasting impressions and provide great memories for all who come. And with our approved security plan that Palm Springs Police Department has already approved, Fuego's goal can come to life safely. Our love for Palm Springs, our high level of respect for this Class C historic building will be recognized. Our respect for the neighbors, neighborhood, and the city will show. And we want to grow Palm Springs and create a fun and safe place for locals and tourists. Another very, very important thing, our sound mitigation plan. It will include the following. Our team has obtained an acoustical report finding that with necessary additions to the building, Fuego Nightclub will be compliant with the city's code requirements pertaining to sound levels. The City of Palm Springs Planning Department also requested that a peer review be conducted. That too found that with a few additions, this project will comply with the city's noise level requirements. We love and respect Palm Springs and really do what it takes to make sure that our noise levels do not go over code requirements. The west wall on the second floor, where the concern is, that's located on the rear of the building and the rear of the bar. It contains windows from the 1950s, and in our efforts to reduce the noise heard from the rear of the building, we had two options, and I think we'll be going with the floor to ceiling wall. That will be installed in front of the windows. It's made of acoustical gypsum panels and with other noise reducing materials. Lastly, we do want to install an interior sound monitor that will be easily accessed from the DJ booth or anybody in the club, like a manager, for instance. Being installed inside the building will ensure that it's not damaged from the excessive extreme heat outside or be victim to theft. Now, here's a few photos so you can kind of get an idea. On the left is the west wall of the building. That's the rear of the building and the rear of the future bar. On the left side of that photo, you'll see those 1950s windows. And you can also see where it would overlook and possibly the noise escape. On the right side is a solid wall, which would then be opened up to be the front of the bar, and then by the windows would be the back of the house. On the right-hand corner, right up top, is an example of sound reduction windows. Seems like we probably won't be going with that one, as we will be going with the lower example, where it's an example of how the soundproofing would work. It's basically a wall that goes from floor to ceiling, made of soundproofing gypsum board and other soundproofing materials to lessen the noise. Our management, a huge thing and very important thing. Our goal is to build an amazing team. Our management team will be experienced in the industry. Strong communication skills and amazing attention to detail will be key for all employees. Our core values are ethics, integrity, and honesty. Continual training will be provided for all employees to ensure everyone provides the same outstanding service. I'll touch a little bit on our design, as that's not a real main focus, but you can see a few pictures here. H3K, Kevin and Howard, local from 2006 here in Palm Springs, will be our designers for the project. We're excited to give this historic building a little life and a whole lot of love. Now our dream, I won't touch too much just to be, cognizant of time, but DRP Enterprises made our building design come to life on paper. Their strong team of Daniel, Chris, who's on the call, Joanne. This team has an extensive work experience in public sectors, small, large firms, including many qualifications and decades of experience around California and in Palm Springs. We feel that this interior remodel we have planned will enhance the beauty of the architect's design and bring this building back to life. Now, lastly.
We're past our time, Ms. Boyer, so please wrap it up.
Okay, this is my last slide here. The community benefits. Now, I do understand that there are some concerns, but there are some benefits as well. Fuego will assist with job opportunities, tax revenue for the city and state, and building use that will assist with some of the homeless issues that are occurring in that area. The potential of bringing Fuego to life in Palm Springs is definitely a dream come true. However, the area where the club will be located has long been neglected as far as tourism is concerned. And I believe that the addition to the 300 block of South Palm Canyon will inspire neighboring businesses. By offering this for locals and visitors, the perfect dance location that is safe and fun, our team is prepared to provide a 5-star experience. We know that Fuego will be a Palm Springs worthy destination. Thank you for your time. And that was our project on Fuego. Any questions? I'm happy to assist.
Thank you, Ms. Boyer. I suspect we're going to have a lot of questions for you. I'd like to direct questions to the applicant. Please keep these to questions at this point so that we can have the public respond to this as well.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would just ask that we continue the public hearing, and then once we're through all of the rest of the public comments, we can ask questions of the applicant.
You like, okay, public first. Okay, I'd like to then invite the public to comment and question on this applicant. Understand it's difficult to see you, so either show me a Zoom hand or make your voice heard that you'd like to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please identify yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is Sandy Goldman.
Yes,
I
Sandy.
have been I've been an over 30-year resident of the desert. And first of all, I was just listening in. That was a beautiful presentation. I think I heard someone earlier saying like that you know, what is Palm Springs becoming, or what's it all about? And from what I remember, Palm Springs always has been about entertainment and glamour. And I've seen through the years, I've seen all these casinos, but I've seen our nightclubs, they've been dwindling. And I agree with the other gentleman who said that there's nowhere for our younger people to go, and that we're losing business because they're going to other big cities, like they're going to Riverside or the Orange County to go and get their entertainment, and they're leaving Palm Springs where they should be spending their money. And I find the opposition quite surprising, because from what I hear, this is just going to be a fabulous upscale nightclub. And with such a large Hispanic and Latin community, I can't imagine it being anything but a hit. So I just really, really hope that the city considers bringing this on, because it sounds like a really great opportunity. And as Miss Boyer mentioned, this block has long been ignored. And as far as the homeless goes, having it occupied is going to be a much better thing than it being neglected as it is right now. So that's really all I have to say. I really hope that this happens.
Thank you for your comments. Lars Vickman.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for letting me comment tonight. And yeah, that was a really nice deck, and it sounds like a nice club and everything. My name is Lars Vickland, by the way, and I am the owner of the Orleans apartment buildings and the two commercial spots right next to the side of where the bank is. And yeah, it does look like a nice deck and everything. And I'm glad that they did the sound study on the inside. I'm really concerned about my tenants that live there. They've lived there for a long time. I've spent millions and millions of dollars on that building. I think the tenants deserve a nice place to live, a peaceful place. The buildings are right next to each other in certain places, not 1 foot apart, but they're actually joined together. And in a lot of places, the patios and the front doors and the living rooms of the tenants face the building and the parking lot. The parking lot, I haven't heard anything about the noise in the parking lot when the people are leaving and driving, the cars, the traffic. It's going to upset the neighbors. You know, Palm Springs is warm. A lot of people sleep with their windows open and their screens, and it's going to be a disaster for all of the tenants in the building, as well as where the people are going to park, where they're going to line up. They're going to be coming in and out of the building. They're going to probably be smoking in the parking lot, making noise after when they're leaving, shutting doors and everything. In addition to that, I also own other businesses that are pretty close to where the bank is. I own the 350 Hotel, the Lwsc Villas, and the Del Marcos, which I've owned for over 20 years. I've renovated and I've rebuilt most of these buildings. I've spent tens and tens of millions of dollars. I already have enough issues with the Village Pub and Moxie and the homeless, and we definitely don't need more noise. We also have issues with parking, major issues on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, where my guests, they go out to dinner, they come back, they don't have anywhere to park because all the people that are going downtown to the clubs, they park inside of our spaces of our apartment building and my 3 hotels. So it's already a disaster enough for parking. To have that limited amount of spaces is not right. I've also heard a few comparisons about, have we heard complaints from the women's club? And I don't think you can compare the women's club to the events they have there. I've been to a lot of them, to what's going to be going on at the bank. And also there was some mention of, have there been complaints of previous events that happened at the bank? And a few of them I've been to, which is modernism events, and they usually are pretty quiet. They close at 10. It's a very different type of patron that's going to be going to Fuego that would be going to a modernism event. So I very much am opposed to this. I've spent tens of millions of dollars on making Bilardo, Baristo, the whole area, Palm Canyon Drive, to make it better, to make it quiet, peaceful. And I think this is a really, really terrible idea. No matter what, you're going to give them 3 months, 6, it's not going to work. There's no way that you're going to contain the noise. You're going to contain the fighting. I see it already happening in the parking lot across. My guests of the hotel are complaining all the time. My employees are complaining, and we already have so many issues. This is the last thing we need in our area. And thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you reject this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vickland. I believe our next speaker is Matt.
Thank you. My name is Matt Schuck. I just want to ensure it's been noted on the record, the opposition on this project from the Eisenhower Health CEO, Martin Masiello. I wish to verbalize that as much as I can. On behalf of Eisenhower, there is concern for the project that is to be located at 383 South Palm Canyon. Eisenhower Health operates a multi-specialty outpatient clinic located at 415 South Palm Canyon. The clinic is immediately adjacent to the project. Eisenhower Health is opposed to this project for several reasons. They understand that they are proposing to construct a nightclub with maximum number of guests to be 327 people, even though the project only has 34 parking spots. Despite this fact, the project proposes to operate between 4 and 2 a.m. with no consideration seems to be made for the noise that patrons will make when entering and leaving the large club, especially in the parking lot next to the clinic during the hours of operations. Notably, several of the physicians' offices are located on the north side of the clinic, right next to the project side, and the physicians there usually work well past 5 p.m. to communicate with their clients. Eisenhower believes the operation of a full-throated nightclub in the clinic neighborhood would only exacerbate the many problems they already had with Village Pub and Moxie establishments creating noise and parking issues. There are also existing problems with homelessness and drug dealing across the street at Bevmo and Rite Aid. All of these problems have already led to property damage on the Eisenhower building, trespassing in the clinic, including unauthorized use of the parking lot, vandalism, and constant litter and debris left behind. As mentioned above, there are going to be noise problems emanating from large number of patrons who will be coming and going that overlap with the clinic operations. Likewise, there's a concern that the issues of parking and traffic have not been carefully considered in connection with this project. The project will obviously not come close to satisfying the parking requirements of 37 people. And this is in a neighborhood that's already suffering from deficient available parking. And they have experienced problematic firsthand as they are trying to avoid others from using their parking lot, such as hotel guest apartments and other tourists. These parking challenges are already tough, and especially during a busy weekend. And with 327 people looking to go through there, it's only going to cause more motor vehicle challenges and as those fight for the nearest parking spot. So they definitely anticipate that we will have to incur the cost of posting a security guard in the Eisenhower parking lot at their expense and monitor the clinic during the property's operation of the nightclub. So for those reasons, Mr. Martin Masiello and Eisenhower Health have opposed the project since it will already cause difficult conditions in the neighborhood to become worse.
Thank you, Mr. Schaaf. I'm looking for electronic hands from public who want to speak. I'm going to close the public comment. If you would like to speak up and comment or have questions, now would be the time.
This is Kelly Vickland. I'd like to just make a little statement.
Please do.
I'm actually the wife of Lars, who spoke a little bit before, and he and I are the only ones that are the owners of the Orleans, the 350, La Serena Villas, and the Del Marcos. And we don't have a ton of investors. And I've met with many of you before because we had to jump through hoops to get any of our projects built, especially La Serena Villas, which we put our heart and soul into. And we also have employees. I'm curious to know how they're going to get all these employees because, as we know, everyone's short-staffed to really monitor all of these problems. So I too really would like this rejected. I mean, we had to even build a parking lot, and for our hotel, it was supposed to be originally 27 rooms. It's 18 now because we had to comply and guarantee parking for our own property. So I don't know how, it looks great on paper, but I don't know how really that's going to be able to be monitored. Maybe the inside noise, I don't know, for my tenants. So I already feel so bad. And the last thing I wanted to say is we're talking about the tenants, but really our hotel guests of the Ingleside, the Avalon, and all three properties that I just mentioned. I mean, that's all of our bread and butter. We're all about making their stay the best it can be. And how do we combat this? How could this possibly be good for any of our businesses? This is how we make a living. This is how we supply so many employees and with their living as well. So I don't know, it just seems like we're going to be extremely compromised. And we already have dealt with so much since COVID, and now this is just like the nail in the coffin. So that's my recommendation, and I appreciate you all hearing me out.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last comments from the public?
This is Brad Corzin.
Thank you, Brad.
I just wanted to reiterate up to
Mr. Corzin, you've already spoken during public comment. You don't have two opportunities. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Anyone who has not yet spoken on this issue tonight? Okay. Okay, I'm going to close public hearing on this. I'd like to give the applicant 3 minutes to respond to what they've heard.
Hello, I'm sorry. Can I speak? You didn't hear me, sorry.
Okay, please do.
I just want to say very quickly, my name's Robert Brueggemann, and I worked for Kelly and Lars for quite a long time. And I can tell you personally, as the front desk supervisor and later a manager, I dealt with the noise issues. Standing on the front steps of the hotel, you can clearly hear the music from Moxie and Village. And we worked to try and get conditions put on Reforma that included having guards in the parking lot, which was the best we could do when that sailed through Planning Commission and Council. This fourth nightclub in the same block, I think, really begs the question, instead of looking at these projects in an ad hoc way, I would encourage the city to develop a plan to see if that block can accommodate what is going to be 1,000 people at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the Reforma project has a capacity, I believe, of 450. This one's 325. I'm not sure what the Village is or Moxie, but they're substantial as well. And so I think we're getting up to, an issue of, can the street facilitate that many people? And so I'm sorry for this applicant to be sort of the one that has to bear the brunt of that. But in the end, it's the city's responsibility to make sure that everyone can be safe. And I would beg the commission to perhaps ask for the Sequa review, and it would include a traffic study for the total capacity of the 4 nightclubs and the noise issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I am officially closing the public comment period now.
Hello.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I have closed the public comment on this now. We are moving forward.
I can't say a comment.
I've closed the public comment.
Okay.
So I'd like to give the applicant 3 minutes to respond to what they've heard tonight.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. The main concern that I'm hearing, as well as others, is definitely safety, noise, and parking, if I'm understanding this correctly. We do have an extensive security plan that we will abide by. And as we all know, if any club or any business doesn't abide by it, it's revoked, the CUP. So there's that. I mean, we will be having revolving security agents in the parking lots, ensuring that people are not causing a lot of noise and hanging out and loitering in the parking lot. That's not our aim. The fun is inside, not in the parking lot. The noise, if we're able to control the noise interior wise, it will lessen the noise when coming out of the building. And I can actually, we can speak to our sound professionals that are also on the line as well to further assist if I haven't answered those properly. Chris?
Okay. I think you have a little more time if you'd like to use it.
Oh.
I'm sure the commissioners have questions as well.
I can add some to that, Justine. My name is Christopher Preciado. I'm a project manager with DRP. What we're going to be doing in the construction documents is mitigating sound through the various methods that Justine spoke about earlier. That will all be done during the construction document phase of this project, of course, if we get there. But we will be working with these sound engineers and vetting our design through them to make sure our STC levels are lower than what is being proposed. Right now it's at 50. We can try to, through use of various materials, RC channels, various layers of JIP, air spaces, mitigate the sound as it exits, as it moves through the main space. That being said, we really have to think about how this project is going to move forward with the sound being, I think, at this point, the main issue. And so based on that, if we just simply think about the sound report, and if we all think that we're going to be applying the sound report, sound engineers' advice to this project, that should mitigate any sound issues we have. I'm not guaranteeing, I'm not saying, I'm not a sound engineer, that there will be noise coming out of the building, but we will be following, and our efforts will be to bring that level down. I want to make that very clear. It isn't something that we're taking lightly. We're actually going to be working very efficiently with the sound engineer to provide that STC level to a point that it won't be an issue. Again, we can't stop the sound from coming out of the building, but we can at least limit it. There's tons of ideas being floating around with a limiter directly to the DJ. I think that's excellent. I think that we can incorporate that type of thing into the system where the DJ has control and can control the bass and the sound levels once he sees on his monitor that in fact the sound levels are reaching the point where we shouldn't be applying any more sound. So there are ways of mitigating this sound, and I believe that's the main issue that we're trying to solve here. Parking can be resolved later in terms of if we can work with other properties to try and utilize other properties' parking lots, like down the way. There's a vacant strip mall that potentially we can ask and lease parking spaces from them. That's pretty much all I have. Oh, the last thing is no smoking. I was texting with Justine right now. I don't have any indication that we're going to be put in a smoking area. This will be a no smoking club. I know that's kind of hard to say because everybody who goes to the club probably wants to drink and have a smoke, but this will be part of the club. There will be no smoking because really there's no areas to smoke. We don't want to put them in front of the street, and we surely don't want to put them in back. So part of our proposal will be that there will be no smoking in this club.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to bring this back to the commission now for questions and comments of the applicant. Who would like to start? Yes, Commissioner Irvin.
This comment is for Jim and David Newell. We are what happened with Vice Chair Roberts? Is that acceptable? We are here for the public and
yes.
Public to also have comments.
Yes.
So are we able to hear that public comment?
Yes, of course. But once we close it, we're closing it. I'm giving everybody the opportunity, but if they're not paying attention and they're coming in late, I have to move forward at some point. But I think we heard pretty much everyone with the exception of one person after I had already closed it.
And like I said, that question is for David and Jim.
It's at the discretion of the commission. The person who was speaking did submit a public comment, which was forwarded to the planning commission. It's really up to the commission if they wish to reopen the hearing and allow additional comments.
I would like to hear what the public has to say. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Right now, what I'd like to do is I'd like for the commission to have an opportunity to question the applicant on this application. Yes, Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, for the applicant, and I know we heard from Mr. Preciado, you are going to have patrons, if this goes forward, you are going to have patrons that will want to smoke. Understand that there won't be any place inside, but they will want to go outside. And if there's not a designated spot and security surrounding that spot, there's going to be a mess either in the parking lot or in the front of the building. So again, if this goes forward, I would recommend that you're going to need to designate a smoking area so that you control any potential issues regarding smoking and noise that can happen with people smoking outside after consuming alcohol. The other is just a comment to the applicants. The spiral stairs inside going from the second level to the mezzanine, is that a new stairway or is that existing?
I can speak to that. What's happening is based on the occupancy of the third level itself, we're going to be putting both the spiral staircase, which will be mainly a showcase kind of thing. It will not be for egress. These second stairway will lead along the north wall down from the mezzanine into the second level for exiting purposes. That spiral staircase will be a a branding of sorts, and Justine can definitely speak towards it. But the idea will not be used for egress. It will be used mainly as a showcase piece, and the actual egress will occur on the north wall with an actual staircase from the mezzanine to the second floor.
Is that spiral staircase being inserted in order to meet your required exiting, allowances for the number of people that are going to be on the mezzanine level, however?
No, it is not. It's being excluded entirely. In fact, your plans may be a little bit older, but the plans that we'll be proposing and putting forward to the building department, as they do their code analysis in itself, will show the egress going down from the north wall, along the north wall from the mezzanine. Again, that spiral staircase will not be used for egress.
Okay. I'd suggest you rethink that. The spiral staircase is a disaster waiting to happen, and I don't know if your insurance agent has looked at that yet. So that's just a comment on that. Again, assuming this goes forward. That's my final comment for the applicant.
We'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. For planning commissioners, Commissioner Murphy.
Hi there. For the benefit of the public and the planning commission, this is directed at Ms. J. Marie. People have brought up the issue of Zeldas, and you have been in the Coachella Valley. Just explain to us how you will be different than Zeldas in terms of every aspect of how you will be different.
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. Zelda's is a prime example of what started out great, but then ended up being what not to be. Okay. Once upon a time, it was a great club, and unfortunately, they failed in many aspects regarding with the Palm Springs Police Department, with their CUP application, numerous code violations, you name it. That is a prime example of what we do not aspire to be. We will not be that. We do not want to be those noisy, terrible neighbors. We do not want to be those problem children of Palm Springs. We want to bring sophistication and fun back. We don't need parties in the parking lot. We don't need fights or anything like that. Our goal is to have a team that will really just mitigate a lot of that and be trained in how to see when problems are about to happen, and when they do happen, know how to handle them appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
More questions from the Planning Commission? I have a question. I'm going to be honest with you. You sound like it's a great club in the wrong location. We have asked you consistently and in different ways to describe to us how you're going to specifically mitigate issues of noise and potential violence in and out of the building. I personally think you probably can keep the noise from within the club in the club. What concerns me the most, and where we've seen consistent problems in the past, is when people leave the venue, when people are coming and going, particularly if people have been drinking and smoking. And all you have given us thus far is that you plan to have a rotating security guard. That's not adding up at all. What I am very concerned about is 4 or 5 hours of people leaving your business after having had a great time, coming out into a parking lot that abuts residences and hotels. These are the times of the week when the hotels will be full of people. I'd like you to be very specific on how, from the time you open to the time you close, you would mitigate sound and trouble within your parking lot and around your building in general.
Thank you. So our plan is to not just have a revolving security guard, it's multiple guards within the parking lot, possibly even one on each corner, to ensure that when we see that somebody is coming out and they have actually parked in that parking lot, we assist to not have them lingering in the parking lot. We assist to have them leaving quiet as possible, and definitely not making it disruptive for the neighbors around. we definitely hear the concern and take it to heart that we understand that this residential building is located in the CBD district, but that doesn't mean that we are not going to do everything we possibly can with security guards, possibly bouncers in the parking lot as well. Everybody will be equipped with either walkie-talkies, radios, cell phones to make sure that we're all in communication. If there's an issue in the parking lot, somebody is always able to either call one of the staff that's inside that can assist with it, that if they need further staff, or if there's something that's already happened, we are very trained and self-aware of how we're going to handle those problems and contacting the Palm Springs Police Department if needed. There's going to be plenty of people in the parking lot as well as inside the building that will assist with disruptive behavior, people who have possibly drank too much. If they have drinking too much, our bartenders, our bouncers, our security guards will all be able to identify the signs of when somebody needs to be cut off or actually escorted out of the building to leave the premises.
Is it your intention to have a full-time person in the parking lot outside the building to monitor from the time you open to the time you close?
Multiple, yes. And that 4 p.m. time of 4 p.m. to 2 p.m., that would only be if there was a special event, somebody who wanted to use the space for a wedding reception or such. But that wouldn't be daily. Our night hours would be from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. Those are the days of the nightclub per se. But there will be multiple people within the parking lot to mitigate this and not have any problems.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments at this point from staff? I do want to allow the woman identified as Britt to give us a comment, although she was outside of our public hearing. But before I do that, any comments or questions from the commission before we have a discussion among ourselves?
Hi, I can talk. I'm trying to show my picture and I don't know how to do it. So I guess I'll just talk.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm a tenant at the Orleans Apartments. And I understand what the commissioner is saying, but how can you say that you'll be able to handle everything dealing with the drunk person? I mean, that's a problem in itself, drunk people. That's going to cause a lot of noise. I live here. There's already problems with the parking. If you build a nightclub next to us, there's going to be problems with crime. There's going to be more homeless people coming in, crowds. There's going to be a list of problems, and it doesn't seem very fun or very smart. We're normal people. We have a job. We need our sleep at night. This is going to be a big disrupt to the quality of our life completely. I strongly oppose this. I know I'm a voice for the tenants here as well, and we don't want this to happen. We think it's a terrible idea. Yeah, we don't want this to happen at all. I don't see any. Would you like to have a nightclub as your neighbor? Can I ask you that?
We're not going to have a conversation back and forth. Thank you very much for your comments. Would the applicant like to briefly respond to that, or do you feel you already have?
I can touch on it. Obviously, we cannot control entirely how people behave, but we can definitely, if we have a strong plan and a great team, we will be able to escort people out with ease, or maybe not with ease, but we will definitely be able to mitigate the noise and the drunk people. Our parking lots cannot be accessed through the back or the side or anything like that. So our tenants our clientele will be within this parking lot. They do not have access to go into their parking lot. It is a little raised at a different level there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing on this and bring this back up to the commission for comments and action. Who would like to start?
Vice Chair Roberts, I see Chair Wormick has a comment or question.
Oh, yes. Chair Wormick.
Hi there. I do think and agree with the vice chair that you're in some ways a victim of being the fourth nightclub in this area. And we had concerns when we approved the Village Pub, probably a few less concerns about the old Robinson's building. But clearly there's a problem. This is an area I would love to activate, but I don't see how we can do it. Probably the only thing I would consider if the rest of the commission wanted to go forward with this was a Sequa study of noise and parking and security on all 4 properties in the area, because it's not just one, it's the cumulative impact. So I just want to throw that out. I don't know what other people's feelings or thinking is on it, but as much as I would like to see this go forward, I have very strong concerns. These hotels have raised the same issues on every single one of the entitlements we've granted. And I know that they have suffered under some of the music and noise. And we have also struggled very hard to support these hotels when they came in. And we were very firm with them. So that it's a clash. I think Palm Springs needs more venues for entertainment. I would love to see this block actuated and enlivened, but I don't see how we can do it.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Miller, and then Commissioner Olayan.
Yeah, well, I first want to thank the applicant. The presentation that you gave was wonderful. The PowerPoint that you had, it's clear that you've thought this through and you've got a nice business plan. I just think this is in the wrong location. The other clubs that are in the area, the Reforma, which hasn't opened yet, the Village Pub and Moxie don't immediately abut residential. This is not only abutting residential, but the building is at a 90-degree angle to residential. And I just don't think there's any mitigation that can occur short of rebuilding a building, which can't be done, obviously, with this 1956 historic resource. There's just no way of mitigating the noise to the point where residents and hotel guests immediately adjacent to the property are not going to be negatively affected. I don't believe this is a Sequa issue. I think the Sequa exemption is fine. This is a localized conditional use permit adverse impact issue. And so for my purposes, I can't make the findings number 2 and number 3 of the conditional use permit. So that's what I would be objecting to this use at this location based on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Olayan and then Commissioner Irvin.
This has been a very interesting conversation. I have changed my opinion from reading the background and taking a look at the material presented through the meeting and listening to people. My instinctive feel is that there is always tension between commercial and residential uses when they back up to one another. And that if you have an established commercial use or industrial or whatever it is, and people choose to live or choose to vacation adjacent to it, they cannot expect for you to change the way that you do business based on the fact that they want to or that they don't want to be disturbed. I personally live close enough to downtown that I hear the music, I hear the hotels. I choose to live in that location because I like the activity. I like the fact that I can walk to restaurants, I can walk to nightclubs, I can take advantage of everything that's there. Similarly, I think that the hotel guests will choose to stay in a hotel if they want nightlife, in a downtown hotel if they want nightlife. If they don't, they're going to pick a hotel that is on a resort, on a different setting or in a different place in town. Therefore, I came in thinking that it is an appropriate use. It's allowed with the CUP. It would be good business. We certainly need things for young people in town. However, in listening to the information that's been presented and considering it further, I recognize that a conditional use permit is required so that you can impose the conditions upon which the business will work with their neighbors. And I am convinced from what I've heard that there aren't enough conditions, there aren't appropriate conditions that we could apply to this application to make it a successful neighbor to the surrounding, both the residents and the hotels. I personally believe that if this were for 100 or maybe 120 people, a much smaller club, then it would be the addition that the neighborhood needs that will continue to be attractive for the balance would lean towards better accommodation for hotel guests and visitors to go have drinks there or go to listen to music, and for residents to do the same thing. But that there's nothing that you can do at this particular location that will handle 320 people, that will allow them to exit respectfully and quietly without the disruption that's going to happen from a crowd that size and from the music and the venue that draws that many people. So it disappoints me to say that I can't support the project because I don't think we can condition it to be the appropriate size and the appropriate component of that neighborhood.
Thank you. Commissioner Urban.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to Vice Chair Roberts for accepting that public comment for the last person that went through. For me, this has been kind of tough for me as well. I like to try to say that I'm consistent and try to use and don't make judgment for any situation. And we've approved a couple of these similar type of clubs here and within maybe I'd say 100 to 200 yards away. But for me, it's just tough looking at the picture and actually going to the site and seeing how close it is to residents. It's just, at this time, I won't be able to be supportive of it. But I just want to be clear that it's not because of the traffic or the concerns with anyone that's in your club. With the other locations, we were pretty swift to make a decision and be in support of it. But I just think for me, being so connected to the residents, it's a no for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Hirschbein.
Well, that's exactly how I feel, Commissioner Urban. I before I started studying this and understanding what the immediately adjacent uses were, I was like, well, yeah, we approved the Bevmo building one, Robinson one. I know it hasn't opened yet. I don't know if it's ever going to open. It looks like it's been taking a long time, but it was approved by us with certain mitigating conditions. And I thought it was probably the right decision. I mean, we may never know because it might not open, but at least it will be a good test if it does. But looking at that Orleans building kind of knocked my socks off. I just thought, wow, I don't know, you could have a nightclub in that building, not adjacent to, but adjoining, abutting an apartment building. That just seemed like it would cause a lot of grief to the people that live there. And therefore, number two, the finding is not detrimental to existing uses. I couldn't make that finding because I would sort of uncategorically state that would be detrimental to that existing use. So therefore, no for me.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Morency.
After hearing everyone and also the applicant, I was prepared to suggest the 3-month, time frame for them to prove themselves. But then on the other hand, I thought they're going to spend a lot of money to just put this whole together, and then to have a 3-month test would be nerve-wracking at the very least, and worse yet, because it is adjacent to apartments. I just don't think there's any situation, even if you had 20 guards, if you have a drunk person who doesn't want to get in their car, they're going to be yelling. They're going to yell, and the security guards are going to try to stop them from yelling, but they're going to yell. And just the yelling alone will disturb the people in the Orleans building. So I think it would be a setup for failure to offer a 3-month, trial, because I just don't. Just human nature, and people are, having too much to drink, and they start yelling, and then it's not going to work. It's just a terrible location for such a great idea. I think it's a terrific club. I would love to see it. I don't know, what about the old Zelda space? But it's, it's just that Orleans building. So I have to vote no. And it's not because I don't think we're doing a great job. I think it would be a terrific business, but I just don't think it's going to work. So finding number 2, I can't make either.
Thank you, Commissioner Mertzi. Chair Wormick, I don't know if you want to speak again, and I will give you an opportunity. I want to make a few comments myself. I concur with my colleagues. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's a great use in the wrong location. It sounds to me like you have a well-planned club. It sounds like a lot of fun. We do need these clubs. We do want to satisfy and give opportunities for nightlife to younger people and older people. I just don't see a way to mitigate the problems that are going to occur outside this club. I think you can solve it inside, but just the mere fact that people from midnight to 2 a.m. will be walking out into that parking lot, starting cars, is going to have a dramatic impact on not only the building next door, but the close proximity of the hotels behind it. I wish there were a way to mitigate it. I wish we could think of a way. So far, I haven't heard it. I think we're not going to find a path, is what I'm hearing from my colleagues, before we look for an action on this. Chair Wormick, did you have a last thought, or is your hand just up from before?
My hand is up from before. I thought I had lowered it, but I would make a resolution of denial, not being able to make finding 2.
Before you do that, Mr. Priest?
Yes.
I'm sorry to disturb you.
No, sorry.
So Chair Wormick, I want to just make sure we do this properly. I don't know if she's here in an official capacity or as a participant. She wants to go ahead and start an action. What do you suggest here?
Yes. Chair Wormick is still participating as a full member of this commission this evening, just under sort of special circumstances. But she is still participating. She may make motions, second them, and vote.
Excellent. Thank you. I just don't want to do this in the wrong way. Chair Wormick, please go ahead.
No, just in case the applicant might have some problems. For the public, I'm in a hospital room, fully competent. But in case they have problems with it, someone else can make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hirschbein, when you do that, if you can also refer to a specific finding on that, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Yes, just as I mentioned in my comments, finding 2 would be impossible for me to make.
Okay. So your motion is?
To deny based on not being able to make the finding number 2.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Commissioner Lane, any comments before we vote on this? We're about to vote on a denial.
So just for clarification from staff, as we prepare the final resolution, the commission is denying the conditional use permit based on inability to make finding number 2. In response to that finding, the commission's comments were relative to the proposed use specifically in the zone not being desirable due to proximity to an existing use, which is residential, that directly abuts the property.
Yes.
The motion maker and the seconder are concur?
It's the specific wording I cannot make a finding for is, quote, and is not detrimental to existing uses, unquote. Because in my opinion and why I'm making the motion is because I think it would be detrimental. So that's specifically what I'm basing my motion on.
Okay. Thank you. Terry, will you take the roll, please?
Of course. Commissioner Hirschbein?
Yes.
Commissioner Leon?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Maruzzi?
Yes.
Vice Chair Roberts?
Yes.
Chair Wormack?
Yes.
Motion to deny is approved 7-0.
Vice Chair, can we take 5 minutes off?
Yes, we absolutely can. I just want to say to the applicant, I'm very sorry. I think we'd all love to see you come and do your club. You're just going to have to find a better place for it where you won't have these impacts. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So if everyone can come back just a few minutes before 8, that would be great. Excellent. We are back in session. We are moving to the second item of our public hearing is item 2B, which is the Parker Palm Springs 2 LLC for an extension of time for Plan Development District Amendment and Major Architectural Review. Applications, case 5.927, PDD 58, AMND, and 3.2451 to amend Plan Development District 58 for a 32-unit hotel addition to the undeveloped 3.7-acre portion of the Parker Palm. Staff, could we have a quick report on that?
Sure, thank you. Let me just share my screen here. Thank you, good evening. As introduced, this is a time extension request for Parker Palm Springs. The Parker Palm Springs is an existing hotel that's located at the corner of East Palm Canyon Drive and South Cherokee Way. The hotel currently has 147 rooms on a 13.45-acre lot. And back in the year 2020, Parker Palm Springs submitted a proposal to the city to construct a hotel addition in this rear portion of the property, which is 3.7 acres in size. This area is an open turf area surrounded by ficus hedges, and the area includes a paved service area. The Parker Palm Springs proposed a 32-unit hotel addition, and it intended to accommodate outdoor activities. And this new Parker Hall is the addition that the business was proposing. It's going to be under separate operation, and it's not going to be open to the public, only accessible to Parker Hall guests only. And they're just a very exclusive, the hotel that they are proposing to add to the existing property. As you see here, the proposal included the 32-unit hotel addition, which consisted of 10 detached buildings in various architectural styles and sizes. And this is just the renderings of approved by the city, just to show the entire view of the property here, taken from different angles, looking at the property to the north from the existing hotel, and the proposed courtyard and landscape design. In addition to this proposal, the project actually involved Plan Development District amendment. As you see here in the picture, the Parker property consists of 2 separate parcels, and before the amendment, this property consisted of PDD 58 and R3 zone, and Plan Development District amendment changed the entire, the R3 portion to PDD so that the entire property become Plan Development District 58 for consistency. As you see in the area image here, there are a few buildings that are actually located right on the boundary of R3 zone and the PDD 58. So this amendment corrected and made things a little bit easier. The Parker Palm Springs, this project had a very extensive history. It was initially reviewed by the ARC in January of 2020, went to Planning Commission review twice, and it was ultimately recommended for approval to the City Council on March 19th. And because it involved the PDD amendment, the ordinance was first introduced in March, and the ordinance was adopted in April. And due to a condition of approval that was imposed by the AAC in January, the project actually returned to the AAC for final landscape event approval. Now, under the zoning code, major architectural application has 2 years for commencement from the date of approval, and the Planning Commission may grant a time extension. And the zoning code also provides a provision on the Plan Development District that the commencement of a final development plan needs to take place within 12 months. And the Planning Commission may revoke the PDD after holding a notice public hearing. And the Planning Commission may extend the 12 months period after holding a notice public hearing. For this particular application, the business is not asking that the PDD be revoked or be considered for revocation. This project was a little bit unique. Plan Development District usually goes through a preliminary development plan review and then to the final development plan. However, this Parker project, its preliminary and final development plans were reviewed and approved concurrently on March 19th, 2020. The zoning code provides the conditions that are required for granting a time extension. The first, it has to be consistent with the general plan, and appropriateness and validity of the original findings has to be met. Environmental changes in the site surroundings and conformance to the property maintenance standards. And the applicant has to demonstrate and convince clearly that the project will be substantially underway within the extended period. And the applicant also has to demonstrate reasonable, substantial, and timely efforts have been and it has to be very unusual circumstances that are not within the applicant's control. Based on the justification letter that's submitted by the applicant and just analyzing the nature of the approved project, hotel expansion is consistent with the intent of the tourist resort commercial general plan land use designation, and applicant is not proposing any changes to the approved plans or designs. And there's no new noticeable environmental changes or conditions that will negate the appropriateness of the project. And the property is maintained in a sounding manner. And the city building safety records indicate that the 5 out of 8 items that the applicant submitted for plan check have been completed. And staff finds that the applicant team has made a reasonable, substantial, and timely efforts to move the project forward within their ability. And then also, this project was approved right after the COVID-19 was in the global pandemic, and hospitality industry was hit quite hard, and pandemic-induced limitations and obligation resulted in additional hardship during this time. And for this reason, the findings, staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve a 2-year time extension subject to conditions of approval included in the City Council Resolution number 24737. And this concludes our staff presentation, and the applicant and his attorney are both available this evening if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noriko. Are there any questions of staff on this application? I'm not seeing any questions. I will have the applicant speak with us. If the applicant would like to give us a brief update. I think we understand this project pretty well since it's been before us. Is there somebody who would like to speak to this? You don't have to.
Hi, this is Robert Patterson. I am the applicant's attorney. I'm going to start my video here. And as you probably all are aware, this is a project that went through extensive planning with the architectural review and with the Planning Commission. It actually was subject to 2 public hearings. There were comments from the neighbors. The applicant expended a great deal of time and money to address the issues that were raised by the neighboring property owners, kind of changed the entryway of the project so that any concerns about light and glare would be addressed. And the City Council and the Planning Commission both approved the project. As Ms. Kikuchi points out, the approval occurred right around the time that the pandemic started. And consequently, as you're all undoubtedly aware, the hotel business was impacted more so than many other businesses. And although the client is very financially strong, it was dealing with a lot of business issues related to the pandemic. The client has not changed the project one iota. This is the same project that was previously tailored for the community and approved. And now they simply need an extension of time based on the pandemic. And as you can see from the renderings, it's going to be a world-class resort destination, which is going to make the city of Palm Springs an even more desirable tourist destination. It's going to provide a lot of jobs, and it's just a really incredible project. I myself look at the landscaping and I'm really impressed by that. That's just a personal note. And so, we appreciate your taking the time this evening, and we hope for your approval of the extension. And we thank Ms. Kikuchi for her kindness and her hard work on teeing this up for the Planning Commission.
Thank you, sir. Are there questions or comments from the public on this particular item? Show me an electronic hand or a real hand or a voice. Not seeing any. Oh, nope, that's you, Terry. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, I am going to give the applicant, if they want it, you don't have to, another few minutes. Normally that would be to respond to comments.
I've said what I want to, so no, I don't have anything further.
Thank you, sir. I will now close the public part of this and bring it back up to the Planning Commission. I'm looking for comments and or an action. Yes, Commissioner Hirschbein.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Awesome. We have a first and a second to move approval for a 2-year extension of an existing approval. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to item.
Thank you.
You bet. Moving on to item 2C. Can we get a staff report, please? Oh, let me read it out. Excuse me. This is the Coastal Business Group representing AT&T Wireless for a conditional use permit to construct one wireless communication facility on the city parking garage to an extension of an elevator tower at a maximum height of 48 feet, located at 235 South Indian Canyon Drive, Zone CU. This is case number 5.11500, conditional use permit. Can we get a staff report, please?
Yes, Chair. Let me get our Vice Chair. Let me get this to come up, and just when you think you're prepared. That. There we go. Can you see that?
No. We don't have anything from you up. There you go. We got it
Great.
now.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. Let me, there we go. So just to orient, this will be a brief presentation. The applicant is requesting to add a cell tower on top of the top deck of the parking garage, the city-owned parking garage. Currently, there are 2 other cell towers that are there. They're very well hidden. They're Verizon, which is the yellow arrow of stars, and the location for the AT&T is where the red star is. So this is the very top deck at the very end. When you drive up to the top deck, there's a staircase that is right here where my cursor is, and there's a turnaround location that's hatched that they are proposing to construct a cell tower, which we'll get to in just a minute. So these are the existing Verizon cell towers. They're on top of the elevator shafts. This one that is in the middle of the garage is at 51 feet from the base grade, 51 feet to the top. What they're proposing is to construct a faux enclosure similar to this split face block that is currently above the elevator shaft on the north end of North Indian Canyon Drive or South Indian Canyon. And looking at this picture, this is the Fisherman's Restaurant next door, just to orient everyone. So as I mentioned, the very top from the grade to the top of this tower will be 48. The current Verizon one is at 51, so it's lower than what is currently there. There is a 4-foot parapet that runs along the edge of the garage. Then this tower will be 16 feet above that. Within the tower enclosure, there's a rack that has the equipment, and then on top of that is the arrays or the antennas that transmit the cell phone signal. Looking at a view towards the east, once again, this is the proposed elevator height at 48, and this is the current Verizon tower at 51. Moving on, just to give you a close-up view, the area where this new enclosure will go is where the hatch mark is. There's a light pole that's there now to orient everyone. Again, they have in your packet, there are photo simulations as to what this would look like when it's constructed from multiple views. You'll notice that from Indian Canyon Drive, it's not visible because of the height of the garage. It's visible from the Fisherman's and Lulu's parking garage as you look south over top of the Fisherman's Restaurant. Just some photographs of existing conditions. The hatched areas, as I mentioned, is where this enclosure will go. There's some fire apparatus that will have to be relocated. And this light pole is about as tall as the tower element will be. This is how it was done at the Verizon, so it'll be very similar. It's got, this is the split face block, and then there's this faux material that encloses the antenna array. Once again, this is looking towards North Indian, where the new enclosure would be. In your packet, there are also propagation maps that show the various AT&T towers around the city. The red dot is where the parking garage is and where they're proposing to build this. You'll see that the green is missing, and that is because the signal is not there, they're strong. And when they build the tower, this is what the coverage map shows. So it goes from that to this. So in our staff report, we feel that we can make the CUP findings, all of them, and we do recommend approval, Chair. And the applicant is here. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Molacker. I'm going to start questions from the commission myself. And Mr. Molacker and Mr. Newell, I'm sorry I didn't call you with this earlier. And Mr. Newell, when we were speaking, it slipped my mind, but I've had this question all day. Is there a reason that we haven't, or have we looked at co-location for these cell towers?
Right, co-location is always an option when it is a tower, a monopole, and not a monopalm. When we have towers that look like faux palm trees, it's unlikely that they could co-locate because you can't set another array underneath it because it won't look, you can't disguise it. You can't have two palm fronds on top of each other. In the downtown area, we do look at buildings that are taller. So there are antennas on top of the Hyatt building. There are antennas on top of the Rowan. So I'll have the applicant describe how they went through the process of determining if this is the correct spot. Obviously, that's a city-owned property, and they need to go through the city council to go through lease negotiations. But they will. They have looked at city parks. But yes, co-location is something that the city does encourage quite often.
One quick follow-up question. Is there any reason that we can't move this, what AT&T is proposing, closer to the Verizon piece that's on the west side of the building to make it less noticeable?
Right. Well, you know, as if you've used the parking garage, it is heavily parked. There are times, many hours of the day, that there are no spots available at all in the garage because it's well used, and the city does not like to give up parking spaces in the garage. So that's why locating it at a location where there's no spots currently, it does not take away parking for public use.
Okay, I may come back to this. Other questions of staff?
I would just add, Vice Chair, that typically if they were to co-locate in the existing facilities, they need to increase the massing of the tower. And so we worked with this applicant. Initially, they had a different proposal to site the facility on top of the corner of the building where Indian and the fish market is located. And it just was out of scale. And so we asked them if they could find another location, and without being out of scale for the existing towers that were already there or the elevator shafts that are there now, we thought this was probably the best compromise.
Okay, yeah, I'll come back to more of my questions later. Other questions from Planning Commission? Commissioner Maruzzi.
For the other two Verizon towers, faux towers, do those have to go before the Planning Commission?
Yes, those received approval back in the mid-2000s.
I see. Okay, so that's why this one also has to come before us. Thank you.
Other questions for commissioners? Commissioner Olayan.
Thank you. I happen to think this is a very handsome parking garage, and I don't say that lightly because that never happens. One of the things that I particularly like about it is the use of the contrast of the different materials, the split face and the smooth concrete, and it makes it very attractive. What catches my eye about this is the fact that the new one, it appears, would be split face like the other one. And I'm wondering if there was thought given to, and I'm not an architect, so in part I'm throwing this out to staff and to my colleagues who are architects, was consideration given to, rather than doing another split face, and because this is located on top of part of the building that does have the smooth concrete finish, using a smooth concrete finish instead?
In staff conversations with the applicant, we wanted it to blend in or be similar to the other elements that are on the building. So, you know, it can't be a concrete structure because the telecommunication signals won't penetrate through them. And the applicant can describe that, but it could look like something else. It doesn't have to look like a split face.
Because it can look like smooth concrete without being smooth concrete.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you can't do concrete itself, but I don't know, I'll leave it open to the architects in the crowd too.
And we can change that if we want. Other questions from Planning Commission? Before I hand it over to the applicant. Okay, if the applicant would like to give us a brief presentation.
Yes, this is Brett Smurl with Coastal Business Group representing AT&T Wireless.
Welcome, Brett.
Thank you. We appreciate the committee and staff for presenting this site for us. I would be available to answer any specific questions. I think staff covered it really well. We looked at a tower here before and were denied, and we listened to what staff had to say and incorporated that into what we're doing or proposing now. With that, I'd like to just ask if you have any specific questions I can answer.
Stand by, we may. Do we have, well, let me open it quickly to the public. Yeah, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the public who would like to question or comment on this application? Okay, apparently the public doesn't think this is our most exciting application tonight. So I'm going to bring it back up to the Planning Commission, knowing that the applicant is here to answer our questions or hear our comments. I have a few comments, but I'll let my colleagues go first. Yes, Chair Wormick, your hand is up. You're muted.
I have no problems with this.
Okay. That was easy. Anybody else? Oh, I see. Commissioner Hirschbein, your hand was sort of lost in the landscape behind you.
It's like that movie. You remember The Beast with Five Fingers? Anyway, this is the best cell tower proposal I've seen in the years that I've been on planning or AAC, and I'm very happy to be able to approve it. And I would move that pending anybody else's comments.
Okay, we have a motion. Peter Maruzzi.
I'd just like to know what was the rejected design before? I don't remember coming before us.
Right. So the project was submitted before, I don't know, 2019. It went to architectural review because the process was different at the time. We went to AAC first and then came to Planning Commission. It was two large structures on top of the corner elevator shaft by Fisherman's that was over 55 feet tall from the base of the grade. It was just out of scale. And we were happy to see when AT&T came back with a more appropriate design.
Thank you very much.
I may be the only one that struggles with this. I'm looking at the photograph in our packet, and it's sheet 1-3, view A. And this particular tower is, in my opinion, very much blocking view. I applaud more cell towers, we need them. But I find this one to be really loud visually and really tall. And if I'm the only one who feels that way, I guess that'll just be my opinion. I can't help wondering if we can't drop it down somehow and maybe adjust the parking. Did staff look at that?
Right. So most cell towers and approvals from Planning Commission range from around 44 feet to 48. So this is in the range of what heights would be for a cell tower. They all obviously always like them taller because they get better range, but this is within the heights from the base of ground to top that we normally would approve.
Yeah,
Vice Chair Roberts, I had a comment. I get what you're saying. There is a bulkiness to it, so it doesn't really look like a tower. It's kind of squat, actually. And the height's not what's really bothering me at all, but maybe the girth of it. So if it was narrower, I don't know if they can make it narrower, but if it was narrower, would that help you?
Well, that, and it's just, we've put it up on the highest point of the building. So when you're standing down on what looks to be arenas, a big chunk of the hillside is blocked. But hold on, Chair Wormick, you have your hand up. You are muted. You're still muted.
I have no comments.
Oh, okay, your hand was up. Okay. Yeah, and Mr. Malacker, I understand what you're saying about height. I just wondered if there was a way to drop it down to the lower structure and by adjusting parking, just so it wasn't such a mass on top of the highest point, and it's on top of a part of the building that's very white and light. So it stands out much more than the other towers because they're actually matching what's below them. I just don't think painting this white's gonna help it. Again, if I'm the only one on this, I'll let it go. I just can't help wondering if we can't do this better.
Right. If you look at on the sheet A02, it's sort of like the floor plan of the design. And it's sort of designed in two levels. So the first level, which would be on the base of the parking garage, contains all the equipment. So it says equipment layout plan and base of faux shaft. And then above it is the antenna layout. So you're stacking two elements on top of each other. So maybe the applicant can describe that. Is there a way to move that? Because there is equipment that's located in the basement of the garage that includes a generator and backup battery system. So maybe they could address that.
It's more the location than the height.
Location, okay.
Yeah, would the applicant like to respond to this at all?
Yeah, I would say that we considered location, and we really do need to be where we're proposing to get the coverage that we need. That's what it essentially comes down to.
What if we were able to move you south on the building?
You mean over towards where the Verizon is?
Yes, just closer to the center of the parking structure instead of on the edge of it.
We had proposed doing something like that, when we talked with staff, and I think it was determined that this would be the better spot.
Staff, did you look at that in terms of adjusting parking versus eliminating parking?
We prefer not to eliminate parking in the garage.
I understand that. My question is, did you look at adjusting parking versus eliminating it?
When we looked at the last proposal, which included the towers on top of the elevator shafts, there was one in this location and one on the north end of the corner of the Indian garage, that corner. So to answer your question, no, we've not looked at moving this specific tower next to Verizon and as to what the height would be. There's a stairwell that goes down adjacent to this, so we'd have to look and see if it would be right next to it, if that's a proposal.
Let me also add to, sorry to interject there, but we also can't be right in front of Verizon's antennas. That would cause interference.
I understand. I'd like to ask one thing, if my colleagues will tolerate it. I'd like to send this to staff to see if an adjustment can be made to drop it down onto the lower part of the structure and see if there's a way to adjust parking to make it work, just so we don't have, in the immortal words of Commissioner Hirschbein, this big girthy thing sitting on top of the tallest piece of the building. Is that, and we would leave it to staff to ultimately give the approval to send it on to council if they could find a way to lower it down. Would the maker of the motion accept that?
I made the motion, right?
Yeah.
So if I understand you correctly, approve it subject to an additional meeting with staff to determine if the project can be located without losing a parking space. The project could be located on the lower level, but then
lower and more centered in the building so that you don't really see it from street level as much as you do here. I feel like we're placing a wedding cake on top of the tallest piece of the building.
But that's fine. I just don't, my motion, I wouldn't agree that it should be, so to speak, a deal breaker. I mean, if staff can work it out, that's fine. I'm happy to have them go back one more time to staff. But regardless of that outcome, it does go on to council.
Absolutely. Staff, are you okay with that motion?
Vice Chair and Commissioners, this is final action. When we updated our ordinances last year, the approval of monopoles and wireless facilities now rests with the Planning Commission unless it's appealed to City Council.
Oh, okay. Well, I was mistaken then. I thought somebody said it went to council.
The lease goes to the council.
Okay, that's my mistake. I misheard that. Sorry. So then it would just be approving subject to a final meeting with staff to determine what we just said.
I'd second that, and I'd like staff to take a look at it and just see if there's a possibility to move it by adjusting parking versus losing parking.
Before we vote, may I ask for clarification?
Well,
by moving it down to a lower level on the roof, we're still talking about it coming up to the same height, correct? We're not lowering the 48 feet from ground. Is that correct?
That would be determined by the applicant and staff. I'm just thinking if it's on the lower part of the building, it won't have the impact that it has where it is right now.
I just think that it could have even a greater impact if we're seeing, if it's now sticking up that much above the level of the roof that it's on, if that makes sense. In other words, if we're lowering it, I don't know, 8 feet or something, we're essentially extending it to be 8 feet taller, but putting it on our lower portion of the roof. Does that make sense?
Mr. Vice, oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Millian. I'm sorry, Commissioner Lane, go ahead.
That's still a question.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could make a suggestion. It sounds like we have some significant questions here about what is feasible and what may not be feasible for the applicant here and for the parking facility. I might suggest that this item be continued to give staff the opportunity to work with the developer, and then we could report it back to the Planning Commission what those determinations were, and then the commission can make final action at that point.
So you would want it to, so you're suggesting that give staff an opportunity to work with them and bring it back on the consent calendar?
Well, bring it back as a continued public hearing. That we've had the public hearing. We would continue the item, and then you would hear it at a later time after staff has had the opportunity to work with the applicant and see what is feasible and what is not feasible.
I know it seems like a small issue, but I'd like to do that if the council is good with it, or the commission is good with it.
I understand your concerns, and I'd vote for continuation.
Okay. So we had a motion from Commissioner Hirschbein. Are you fine with what staff is suggesting?
I'm not going to make that motion.
Okay. I'm going to make that motion that it be continued to our next meeting, contingent upon a meeting with staff to see if we can have, we can mitigate the scale and the height and the visual impacts and bring it back on our, and bring it back to our next meeting.
If I could just confirm, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Newell is bringing it back to the next meeting, going to leave you enough time to meet with the applicant?
I would let the applicant comment on that. Staff is available to meet with them as soon as they're available.
Yeah, this is Brett again with Coastal Business Group. I'd like to add some things here. By moving down to the second level, that would cause interference with the antennas. We need to be on that top level. And we need the higher height like Verizon has to get the proper coverage there. And I have my colleague, Jessica Grevin on the line, if she wouldn't mind chiming in here as well.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to answer some of the questions that Mr. Roberts had in concern to maybe putting it more center of the parking garage or on the lower levels.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So a couple of those comments, our previous proposal was on the lower level on top of the elevator shaft. And it was shot down due to the fact of they thought it looked too large in comparison. The height is similar to what we were proposing on the second level. However, it just was larger since it was on the lower level. We had the height itself of the structure was going to be taller, but as far as like it was going to be the same level as what Verizon is proposing or what Verizon has existing. However, they're on the second level, so that's why the overall height of their structure is shorter. In terms of being in the middle of the structure, again, Verizon is taller. They're at 51 feet, and that's because they're in the center of the structure. So they needed more height in order to obtain clearance from edge to edge. And the parapet, when you're not in a corner, you have to be higher up. So you take in consideration shadowing of the equipment and maybe some blockage that you may have. As far as designing it to maybe look like a sleek concrete finish, of course, the design aspects of the finish, whether it's the stucco, sleek concrete, that could all be changed just by the FRP that we put around the antennas.
Yeah, it's not an aesthetic issue with respect to finish. It's just about its scale and its height. I think more height works when you're on the lower part of the garage and you're moved away from the corner. But I'm not going to beat this to death.
I understand.
But thank you for your comments. What do you think? Should we just move this forward? I guess I need to ask myself that question. Yeah, why don't we move it forward? Why don't we just move it forward?
So what we have on the floor is your substitute motion. So if anyone else wishes to make another substitute motion, that would be appropriate.
You're quoting the Roberts rules correctly.
So I think it's my motion that I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to put out a new motion to approve as is.
Scott, I think you need to raise your hand higher. They can't see. It's like barely over the edge. It's like there.
Yeah,
it's like that tower.
I saw you raising your hand.
Okay, here we go. So is there a second to my motion? Okay, thank you. So Commissioner Hirschbein second my motion. It's being approved as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all for putting up with me on that one.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Okay, we are moving. Yes.
Vice Chair, before we continue, I have to exit the meeting now, and I apologize that I can't stay for the full extent of it.
All right. Well, thank you for showing up as much as you can. We appreciate it, and whatever you're doing, we hope you're having a good time. Okay, we're moving into unfinished business. We have none. We're moving into new business. Item 4A, Jackson, Maine Architecture on behalf of NWB Palm Springs, LLC, for a major development permit application to construct a 61,704 square foot self-storage facility with a 912 square foot leasing office on a 3.55 acre undeveloped parcel located at 890 North Gene Autry Trail, Zone M1P. Can we get a staff report?
Yes. Thank you. Good evening again. This is a proposed self-storage facility, more specifically West Coast self-storage at 890 North Gene Autry Trail. The project site is a 3.55 acre lot that's located on Gene Autry, and the general plan land use designation of the project site is industrial, and the zone designation is plant research and development park. The property is adjacent to the Desert Sun building to the south, and it is adjacent to the Escena residential community to the north and east. This is just a view of the property taking at the intersecting point of Tamarisk and Gene Autry. the street that you see here, the Tamarisk Road, although it appears to be a regular street, this is actually a private driveway that belongs to the Desert Sun property. And the project site is undeveloped, relatively flat, and there are existing 8-foot high walls on the north and the east side of the property to show what the property looks like right now. So the West Coast self-storage facility is a 61,704 square feet in size. The proposed building height is a general single story with a maximum building height of 20 feet, which is measured at the building corners. And the facility will provide indoor and outdoor storage area. The outdoor storage area is going to be utilized for RVs and the boats, mainly for to store such equipment. And as I briefly mentioned, the property is developed. Excuse me. Property is adjacent to an existing 8-foot high wall. And the proposed hours of operation for this facility is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Number of on-site employees will be 2. And the most amount of customers expected at any given time is 10 people. This is a site plan. The proposed building will be located at the, positioned at the southwest corner of the lot. And the access to the site will be provided by a private driveway on the south side. And the driveway will wrap around the corner of the building and connects to the Gene Artery on the north side. And this is just to show the site, the layout. Customer parking will be located by the leasing office, and the RV and the boat storage area will surround the building. So as I mentioned, the property is adjacent to the Desert Sun building, and there's an existing private driveway. There's an exclusive, non-exclusive easement that's recorded, which allows the project site to provide access from this private driveway. Once approved and completed, this self-storage facility will include, I believe, over 500 internal units, which I'm pretty sure the applicant can provide additional information. And in terms of the building design, there will be the canopy structure on the north side of the building, and there are smaller canopy structures to accentuate the buildings on the west and the south and the east side. And there will be solar panels and rooftop equipment, which will be screened. And these are the renderings that are submitted by the applicant. The proposed construction material will consist of a stucco and a metal. And again, the building height is generally lower, about 15 feet to 17 feet, I believe, with the highest point is 20 feet, which is measured at the corner of the building. And some of the units will be accessible from the exterior of the building. And these are the elevations that provides more detailed information and the design details. The sign will be reviewed by the ARC. And then also the project proposes desert neutral color palette with the accent color of royal blue. And these are the proposed materials here. And the project proposes an installation of a new landscaping, more particularly on the perimeter of the project site, along the North Gene Artery Trail and the north and east side of the lot. So this project, well, before moving forward to the next section of this presentation, this project does not require any neighborhood outreach meeting or anything. However, it was the applicant's desire to have and to approach the community and to obtain the community input. So they decided to hold a neighborhood outreach meeting. And ever since the decision was made, the applicant, the Office of Neighborhood Involvement, and the planning staff worked very closely. And the particular applicant spent quite a bit of time organizing the planning for this neighborhood outreach meeting. As this staff report was being prepared, it was the planning staff's understanding that the notice to the Escena neighborhood organization was provided by the Office of Neighborhood Involvement. However, after the agenda was posted and the staff report was posted for public viewing, the planning division started receiving some public comments stating that they did not receive notice. And that's the time when we realized that the notification actually did not go through. So on the staff report, page 9 and 10, it states that additionally, the Escena neighborhood organization was notified of the neighborhood outreach meeting by Office of Neighborhood Involvement. Just for the record, staff would like to correct that, and it actually did not happen. For this neighborhood outreach meeting, the planning division provided the mailing labels to the applicant. One of the recipients was a Escena HOA. Unfortunately, the labels that the city created utilize the data that's provided by the Riverside County Assessor's Office, and the address of the HOA community that was in the county's system was not the most current one. And for the reason, actually, the letters that were sent to the Escena HOA were returned to the applicant. This stuff wanted to kind of clarify the disclosure information here. Based on the information that's provided by the applicant, the self-storage use is consistent. Staff finds that the self-storage use is consistent with the general plan and zoning code. The low impact use will not cause detrimental impact on adjacent properties, and the proposed building site is compatible with the adjacent Desert Sun building, and the site setting, which is right next to a major thoroughfare and a private driveway, those streets will be capable of accommodating the amount of traffic expected to be generated by the use, and there is adequate infrastructure to support the proposed use. And the applicant submitted a traffic impact assessment document, which determined that the implementation of the project will have less than significant impact. On the other hand, the landscape plan that's submitted to the city is missing a complete planting legend, and the existing 8-foot high walls may not be sufficient to adequately screen the RVs and the boats, depending on the type of vehicle. And the wrought iron style fencing is proposed at the entry and exit points, which does not fully screen the storage area. And finally, the staff finds that the simplification of the design treatment on the west elevation of the building between the building corners may be desirable. For the reason, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the proposed project, more specifically major development permit application, subject to the conditions of approval recommended by staff, which include the following. Install additional planting materials in the preliminary planting bed to ensure adequate screening of the RVs from the residential areas. And then also the planting materials and installation service satisfactory to the Riverside County Airport Land Use Commission and the Palm Springs International Airport requirements. And replace the wrought iron style fencing near the entry and exit points with the 6 high walls to reduce the visibility of the outdoor storage area, and utilize the triangular non-parking area for additional landscaping. And then also the one of the recommendations is simplification of design treatment. The staff like to share that before the applicant submitted this major development permit application to the city, they submitted a pre-submittal conference application. And the rendering on the right side, this is what the applicant initially submitted to the city. as a part of pre-submittal conference review. At the time, staff provided comments to the applicant that maybe the void or the wall can be broken up. And applicant submitted a revised one, which is on the left side here. And this is a proposed elevation treatment. However, based on what's presented, staff thinks that the simplified design treatment that was shown previously may be more desirable. And these are the conditions that the staff is recommending as a part of the approval of this project. This concludes the staff presentation, and the applicant and owner of the business, I believe, are both available this evening if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. Before we open this up with the Planning Commission, I need a clarification. A planning commissioner, I believe, owns land within a SENA. Is that a problem, Jim? When I look at the diameter, the 500 feet, it looks like it reaches onto the development. Is that going to be a conflict? Jim, you're muted.
Is it within 500 feet?
Well, if you look at the vicinity map, it looks to me that the line crosses over into the Ascena development. I don't have a page number for the vicinity map to tell you, but it's the back of page 11 of the staff report.
I'm scrolling to it now. Okay, thank you. Yes, I have it. I would advise that if the person owned property within 500 feet of this site, that they should recuse themselves.
Their home is within the development. Their home is not within the 500 feet, but they are within 500 feet of the development is within 500 feet. So
I believe that would be too attenuated. I don't believe that would require a recusal.
Okay, I just want to make sure we did this right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and one other clarification I need, Noriko. So if I understood you properly, the applicant reached out to Ascena to have them comment on this, but the notice never got to them. Is that correct?
The applicant held a neighborhood outreach meeting, but the primary communication between the applicant and the HOA or Ascena, the staff was supposed to deliver the information to them, and that did not happen.
So Ascena never knew that there was a meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. Before the meeting, no.
Okay, so the neighborhood never had an opportunity for input on this until now?
As a part of our regular notification requirement, the planning division sent out the notice of this March 9th planning commission meeting last Thursday. So we did receive some comments, but not specifically for the neighborhood outreach meeting.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to open it. I'm going to open this up to the Planning Commission. Let's just have an open discussion on this. Your thoughts, questions, Commissioner Maruzzi.
Ms. Kikuchi, didn't you say that outreach of this kind was not necessary, not required?
Correct. It was not. This is not a requirement. It's optional. However, the applicant took a very proactive approach and wanted to receive some kind of a community feedback. And so that's the reason why they decided to have one, but it's not required.
And then the second question I have is, what exactly is the underlying zoning? What does the zoning code say this property should be? Research and what?
Oh yes, I know it's very long. It's actually M1P zone. but it stands for Planned Research and Development Park Zone.
And a storage facility meets those definitions?
Yes, it is listed as a permitted use.
I guess I'm confused. How is it related to research? And what was the other one?
Planned Research and Development Park.
Development park. What is a development park?
Development park is often been seen as a like business park, but in this M1P zone, a variety of industrial or commercial uses are permitted. And self-storage, warehousing, and such use is one of those uses.
And could I get confirmation from staff and or our attorney?
I can, Mr. Ruzzi. Yes, it is the M1P. It has that complicated title of like research development park. It's a variant of industrial zoning, like your M1 zone. It just has, specialty and varying uses, slightly different than the M1 zone, but it is an industrial zone. This is classified as mini warehousing and office use, which is permitted in the M1P zone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions, Commissioner Hirschbein?
In the normal course of events, would the ARC see this proposal and make comments?
Yes.
So they would see, if we approve it, it would go to ARC. Is that how that works?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we give, it's not a motion yet. It's a strategy, rather than us trying to solve some of these issues, be it the gate or the landscaping, that we provide ARC with our concerns and let them iron out the details. Because I think that's what the process is designed to do.
I think I like your strategy. I want to say that would give an opportunity, I hope, for the applicant to actually meet with the neighborhood. So the neighborhood can bring their concerns to the AAC. So we'd want enough time for that. But before we do that, I want to hear from the rest of the commission. Questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any other questions or comments. Do you want to mold that into a motion, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve and send on to ARC, having them look at the specific concerns of staff and the some of the residents of Acina that we've gotten comments from about shielding views, subject to, of course, airport restrictions.
I will second that. I will say that I'd like staff to look at maybe an alternative to DG, because in that area, that's going to blow around a lot as a ground cover.
Yeah.
I think all staff recommendations are good and should be strongly considered. I agree that we should have, see if we can create some visual distancing from the neighborhood that is within the airport's approval. And in general, the other thing I'm concerned about is the structure itself. Ultimately, when Acina expands, the wall between Acina will also be the wall between the self-storage. So you're going to have houses right up against the back of this eventually. So I would like AAC to also look at how close the building is to the boundary, particularly the side of Acina.
Well, on that, I think you're potentially opening up a can of worms, because I don't want the ARC to review the site plan. I think the site plan should be a given to them. I'm willing to approve the site plan. I would like ARC to iron out some of the details staff's brought up, as well as some of these elevations. You know, staff said do one thing, they did the other, then they came back and said, no, do the first thing. I'd like ARC to weigh in on the elevations as well. But as far as the site plan and distance to the perimeter. I don't want them to have jurisdiction or staff to change that.
And Mr. Vice Chair, I might say, I believe Commissioner Hirschbein has articulated the proper separation of powers under the new code. So I think, yeah, that would be appropriate for you to retain a decision on the site plan, location, and orientation of the buildings on the site. And then the ARC would handle the items that staff has identified as concerns that you have identified as concerns from an architectural aesthetic standpoint.
As I'm looking at the site plan, it looks like they've pushed it as far away from the wall as they probably could already without having to reduce the size of their building. So I'm okay with the site plan. I'm willing to let that go. And as long as the rest of the commission is okay with the site plan. Okay, then I think you've got your motion stands, and I will second it without site plan consideration. And I second it. Can all those in favor of moving this forward to the AAC and approving it with conditions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to, I think it is our last item. It is. We have a discussion of the 2007 general plan limited update. We are to review revisions to the general plan, vision statement, and priorities. Staff, do you want to give us some sort of a report with this, or do you want us just to go into discussion on it?
Yes, Vice Chair Roberts and Commissioners, I do have a presentation, but it's going to be just a brief background, and then we can go through each of the statements. And then if the Commission agrees, we can move on. It'll be kind of a tell me if you agree type of a presentation. So with that, I'll start the presentation. So as you'll recall, the city is doing its limited update to the general plan. Okay, I lost something here. Hang on one sec. Okay. All right, now I've got it. So bear with me. Okay. So just as a way of background, I know when we started this process and when we reviewed the vision and priority statements previously, I think we had two or three current commissioners who were not part of the commission at the time. So just as a way of background, the general plan vision, the statement that is being updated as a part of the limited update to the general plan, it serves as the foundation for all of our goals and policies within the document. It is our common ground from which we make our decisions and defines our priorities, priority areas where the resources should be focused. So again, it's really the overarching statement for the general plan. And it's kind of the just broad and general statement that we aspire to be in the next 15 to 20 years. After we've established our vision, we need to establish the priorities that execute the vision. And these are more value or theme oriented. They do require more focus and attention and give future direction. And they are more focused issues in order to prioritize the use of staff resources and the allocation of the city's budget. So the general plan vision, as I said, it's more broad. Priorities are more specific in how we achieve what we want to be and what we aspire to be in the next 15 to 20 years. So additionally, in terms of background, we've done a couple of surveys when we started this process. We did a workshop back in February of 2020. We've had several steering committee meetings on the vision and priority statements, and then the commission made recommendations back in July of 2020, followed by a final recommendation in September of 2020. And then ultimately council reviewed those recommendations from the background and input that we were receiving on the changes to the vision and priority statements on October of 2020. And at that meeting, the council directed that we should do additional outreach and get more input from stakeholder groups and members of the public. So after October of 2020, we did several outreach meetings. As you see here, this is the list of different interest groups and stakeholders in the community, as well as neighborhood meetings that we held, or that were held as a part of our housing element outreach as well as some of the individual stakeholders, starting from November of 20 to as recent as this past January. So what we've done is tried to craft all of that together here in the revised vision statement that you see here on the screen. I don't have the original 2007 vision statement because I think that's kind of, that's now outdated. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of input throughout this process. So the vision that you see here on the left is the one that was considered by council in October of 2020, as well as the one that was the one that the Planning Commission recommended on the left. And then what we've done is revised the vision statement to what you see here on the right, with new text showing in red underline and text that was removed or in the stricken text here. So this is I think captures a lot of what we were hearing or what we've heard throughout our outreach meetings, being more diverse, more inclusive, and as you see here throughout these changes. So at this point, I would probably like to open it up to the Planning Commission to provide input on this. And if there's any additional changes or recommendations that you'll have, we can forward that to the City Council, who will be reviewing this tomorrow night.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Could you clear the screen? Thank you. Thoughts, ideas, questions? Commissioner Maruzzi and then Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, I mean, I read through the document in terms of the proposed changes and so forth, and I thought they were all fine. It's sort of expanding on what was already there from the 2020 meeting. So I had no comments.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm relatively new to this, obviously. I applaud all the work that went into this, and I have read through it as well, and I didn't see anything that I wanted to comment on as far as changes or additions as well. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on this? Ideas? Yes, Commissioner Irvin.
Yeah, I just kind of want to echo the same thing that the other commissioners mentioned as well. I went through, kind of read it pretty well. It seems like it's consistent with what we've already discussed, and I don't think it was many changes. And I'm in support of it.
Okay. Commissioner Hirschfein, do you have anything to
add? Just supporting previous comments, and that I'm in support.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Newell, I know one of the commissioners who couldn't stay with the meeting had shared some thoughts with me and with you about adding a category specifically for climate change. Can you speak to that recommendation?
Yes, Vice Chair. We had, she did give me a couple of comments, and all those are the ones that I had taken down were specific to priority number 2 and priority number 3. So I can discuss those once we get into that section of the presentation.
Okay. If you'll bring those up at that point, because I echo those concerns, so we can move on, unless I think the commission's good with where we are to this point.
Okay. let me pull up the next slide.
And by the way, it looks like a lot of work went into that.
It's been a process. Okay, priority number 1. So again, there were 10 priorities in the 2007 general plan. The revised document or revised priority statements, we had 12. Tonight we have 13, but maybe 14 based on the comments that I heard from Chair Wermuck. So I can get into the specifics of the others once we get to it. But the first priority of the 13 or 14 that we have, this is really the minor change that we made. I think this is, generally still important for the city that, we're premier desert resort community. Again, this priority that we reviewed back in October of 20, we modified this substantially to really show that not only do we, we're a desert resort community, but we're not, that's our brand, right? We've heard that. We've always had, the city has been a tourist destination, but we've also heard that residents want to steer somewhat away from only being a tourist destination. But it also has cultural diversity. We have identity here. So, really not a whole lot that we modified in this priority. So, again, we're open to feedback or additional comments from the commission.
Next.
Roundtable, comments, ideas?
I'm sorry, I thought my general comment referred to all of these, but maybe.
Okay. Well, if the commission would rather go instead of going through one by one, I can kind of touch on most of them, and then if there's specific comments on the ones that maybe if you make a note on as I go through them, that might be more efficient with our time. So I can do that.
Let me ask the commission, when you made your earlier comments, was it just on the one section or was it on the overall document? And was it overall for everybody? You're all saying yes? Okay, so yeah, Mr. Newell, it sounds like everybody went through it. I certainly did. And again, my only real concern was the climate change, if you want to jump to that, so that the Planning Commission can know what we're talking about.
Yeah, let me pull that up. Okay, so Chair Wermuck had a comment about priority number 2. So this is the one that I'm suggesting we look at and consider as a part of the recommendation to council. What you see here on the right, obviously it includes the stuff that you have in your report, but it also adds an additional phrase here after socioeconomic position in the report. So it says, and this can kind of get a little wordy and long, but we've added this here, and anticipate and mitigate the impacts of climate change. And this was from a recommendation from the vice chair of the Sustainability Commission. So this was also recommended before we added this phrase here, which was recommended by the Human Rights Commission.
Okay.
So that was the recommendation that I received from Chair Wermuck earlier today. So
comment.
Yes, Commissioner Miller, yes.
Yeah, I would say, do we want it to expand beyond for all residents? In other words, should we be looking at visitors as well, or property owners? Or I'm just thinking there's businesses and other things besides residents that should be promoting sustainable and affordable use. I just wonder if residents needed to be expanded there. I don't know what others are thinking.
So I think you're making a good point. Would we change that for the for the entire community, regardless of socioeconomic position? Would that cover it? Or is there better wording?
How about stakeholders?
All stakeholders?
Yeah, because you could say a business owner is a stakeholder. You could say a visitor is a stakeholder.
I think it's a good point.
Without listing every possible stakeholder.
Or if you wanted to provide some more, some more interest on the residents, you could say for all residents and other stakeholders, perhaps, if you wanted to draw out residents specifically.
That's fine too.
Residents and all stakeholders rather than others. How about that?
Okay.
Ooh, I love editing on the fly. This is great. What do you think of that, gang?
That's fine.
Commissioner Irvin, I can't see you, so if you don't like that or want to change it, speak up. Now I can see you.
No, it's fine.
You're good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. So, Mr. Newell, I think that was the only addition that I saw as well, and I think you just nailed it.
So yeah, there was one of the comments she had relative to priority number 3.
Okay.
So.
I think I remember this. Yeah, that was minor.
So this was priority number 3. If it pulls up here. This is priority number 3. In this priority, we talk about diversifying our economy. And we also talk about promoting education and innovation. So because these can be separate categories, technically, she and I talked about potentially separating this priority out into 2 different priorities. So let me go show you what we might look at if we chose to do that. So if we chose to separate this priority out and talk only about the economy and innovation, this is one way we might do it and really keep this one focused specifically on our economy.
Personally, I think it's moot, but I'm okay with it.
And then the other one that we would add then is this priority here, improve higher education opportunities for residents in the city and surrounding areas, promote and seek local higher education options within the city to improve the workforce and provide living wage opportunities.
Thoughts, comments?
I like spelling out educational opportunities as a separate item, but the last sentence there, I'm wondering if that wouldn't be better back in the economy statement where it says promote employment opportunities in renewable energy and other green businesses. I mean, that is education related as well to some extent, but it also is really speaking towards economic strength.
Nor does it need to be mutually exclusive. Why can't we have it in both places?
Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner Miller. It sounds like a business priority, not a educational one.
Yeah, so it is in this one too. We can take it out of the education if the commission prefers.
Just that makes sense to me.
You want to pull it out of here and just move it?
Yeah.
Well, it already is, he said, in the business one.
Okay. So you want to pull it out of education? Does that feel better?
Yeah, I agree.
This one seems targeted at the COD.
Yeah, it does.
Within the city.
Yeah, that's a can of worms.
Next door, not an Indio. Within the city.
Okay. You are subtle as a train wreck there, Commissioner Morency. Okay. So, David, I'm hearing that we want to pull it out of education and leave it on the other end.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, innovation, renewable energy is certainly an innovative thing, I think, for our economy, so.
Okay.
And I think as it sounds like everyone has already looked at all the other priorities, generally those are fine. So unless there's any other comments that you'd like me to forward to the city council, I have what we need. Thank you.
I think we're good with it. I think you built it into something that's a great living document for the city council. I think it's good. Okay, we are at that time in the evening, gang. Planning Commission reports, requests, comments, any thoughts from you all? Planning Director's report, David, what do you have for us?
Nothing new. We've got, as I said, on council's agenda tomorrow, the vision and priority statement. So they'll look at that. The council will also look at the zone change that was recommended from the Planning Commission on the 4-lot subdivision on Sunrise and Ramon. So that's on their agenda tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, because that got appealed.
No, you approved it.
Oh, that's right. That's
you
right.
approved the subdivision and then you forwarded the change of zone to the city council. So they'll be considering that tomorrow.
Awesome.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's late.
That's okay. Any appeals from us?
Yes, that's what it was. We did get appeals on the Crestview houses. So that will be forwarded to the city council.
You did get an appeal request on that. Okay. Okay. Guess what? We're at that time. We are move adjournment unless there are any burning questions or thoughts. Bye, everybody. Thank you all. Staff, thank you so much for a good meeting. A tough one, but a good one. Thank you all for tolerating me and Kathy's speed.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.